once you actually get down to it, once you remove all this, like, you're an expert, you're not an expert, you've never been, what are you watering, you've got no actual argument here.
Everyone that is in the room says that basically what the Israelis did, and Sharon is the leader of the party and leader of the country, tells Bush, this Iraq idea is stupid, it's not going to work, democracy doesn't work in the Middle East anyway, Iran is the threat, you should be focused on them. Bush tells them to F off, we're going into Iraq, and then Sharon says, okay, well, we didn't convince them, we might as well support our biggest allies because we never want to be on the wrong side of America. That's actually what happened. And then once a decision is made, oh, we love the war in Iraq, testifies as a citizen, not as a leader of the party. And everyone in the room corroborates this story.
Okay. Look, I just say I highly recommend people read Mearsheimer's book, The Israel Lobby. The guy, this world-renowned scholar, wrote a book about the most controversial topic in the world.
You don't have an original thought that's actually yours?
I'd highly recommend people go read the book. It's all backed up in there. There's tons of evidence on it.
That doesn't do anything for me. Then you got to have an actual argument. Otherwise, you're not going to persuade me. And I think for most of the viewers.
Knowledge, too.
Is that right? So then how does that
Mearsheimer really is my source on this.
And I was like, yeah, but what's the response? Like, what's the response to my point? Like, I made a point. You made nothing.
And he testified after the Iraq war decision had already been finalized by the White House. What does it matter what he said after the decision was made, Dave?
Because he's talking to Congress and trying to persuade them to support it. I don't know, man. I mean, like, it does seem like you're bending over backward to cover for a foreign country. It's just a little bit strange.
I think that if you're gonna smear me, keep calling me this. Okay, fine. What did I get wrong?
It's true. I am muted. I muted myself and I did not know. Okay, I said that we are going to know what he got wrong. You know, the last clip we played said that he said, I got something wrong. Or tell me what I got wrong. And we are going to tell him what he got wrong. He's going to find out exactly what he got wrong. In fact, the whole debate just exposed the wrongness of the mentality of these podcast bros who Joe Rogan has inflicted the rest of us with. And yeah, so that's what we are going to be talking about. Is my audio back? Is my audio back, ladies and gentlemen? All right, my audio has been fixed. Yes, I muted myself. I didn't know. All right, Ronek is in the building. Oh, Happy Mac. Happy Mac is in the building. Happy Mac, thank you for the super sticker. I really appreciate that. We are not back to the old format. You may not notice, but we are not back to the old format. As you can see, my I think it's showing over here. Yeah? Okay, here, actually. My left is right and my right is left. It's showing over here. You can see over here that my live chat is showing. And it's kind of different. Everything is different. So it's not like the usual chat. I wanted to flip things, as in do something new, something different. So that's what I'm trying to achieve with this live stream. All right, guys. So let's make what I'm trying to try out successful, okay? If this works out, I'll continue with this format. This is actually, yes, it's landscape, but it's not still the same format. And I also want to, in the future, try the portrait thing, you know, to see how it goes. But Ayanora has told me that she doesn't like it, so I will not do it. Anyways, smash the like button, guys. Smash that like button. Destroy it. Demolish it, okay? Do everything you need to do to the like button. If you're not yet subscribed, subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell. We have a lot of things that we are going to get into. Okay, not so much. We're just going to review the debate between Coleman Hughes, Coleman Hughes and Dave Smith. And I'm going to give you my general overview of Dave Smith's performance. This is one thing that has become clear to me the more I watch Dave Smith and the more I notice just how he engages in this type of debate. Like I was saying in the first live stream before I ended it, one thing that I've observed about the likes of Dave Smith, that's like the Candace Owenses, the Tucker Carlsons, and the Dave Smiths of the world. They do three things, right? They either, especially with the facts about Israel, and when they are debating Israel, with the facts, when the facts are presented to them or when they have to deal with the facts, one is that they either ignore it, deny it rather. The first thing they do is deny it. They vehemently deny the truth. They vehemently deny the facts when they are presented. They claim that it is not true, and they do so vehemently. Like, they do so with so much confidence that just an onlooker who has no vested interest in what is being discussed and who doesn't know so much is going to be inclined to think these guys know what they are talking about. I mean, this person can be this confident and this vehement in their proclamation, then what they are saying will be true. That's kind of what they take away when you look at these people and how they engage, especially, Dave Smith and the likes, and the Tucker Carlsons and the Candace Owens. You see them make this bold, outrageous claim, and they say it with so much confidence, and you're like, yeah, this has to be true. I'm still being told to increase my volume. I cannot increase my volume louder than it is already. Like, this is as loud as it can get right now. Like, the volume is loud, loud, loud. There is no other loudness that can be. Like, I'm being told, increase your volume. You increase your volume. Ballistic man. Or maybe it's not ballistic mind's fault. But is there any other person who is experiencing the same thing? I'm getting this, your volume is not loud enough talk. Is it just him, or is there someone else who is experiencing this? Let me know. Let me know, guys. Just tell me in the comments. I'm waiting. Is my volume okay before I proceed with all the things? Let me know, guys. Let me know. Let me know. Okay. People are saying compared to previous live streams, the volume is low, and I should put my mouth close to the mic, as close to the mic as possible. Is this close enough? Is this close enough? Is this close enough? Let me know. Okay. How is it now? Is the volume okay now? Okay. I believe this is how I'm going to be talking moving forward with my mouth so close to. I don't understand why the volume is low. I mean, what are you saying? You said, no, we want SMR. What does SMR mean? You want me to shout? Yes, the volume is good. All right, thank you. Please, if you can't hear me loud enough, maybe it's not my fault. Okay? Consider that. Okay, consider the fact that it's probably not my fault. All right. Let's proceed. So I will repeat again the things that I've said for the 15th time. When dealing with when people like Tucker Carlson, Dave Smith, Candace Owens, Bassem Youssef are having conversations about Israel, they do three things to the facts about Israel. One, they deny it. Two, they ignore it. And three, they downplay it. Or they do a combination of these three things. That's kind of like what I've noticed. There's this combination of these three things when they are having this conversation. You see them deny the truth, especially when it is presented to them, they deny it, and they do it so vehemently that an onlooker who doesn't know much about what is being discussed is like, maybe these people are right. I don't know much, but with the way this guy is speaking with confidence, or with the way these people are speaking with confidence, maybe there is something to the claim that they are making. Maybe there is something to what they are trying to say, even though I don't know so much. And maybe, and they can sound more confident than the person who they are. Let's say it's a debate. The person who they are debating, they might sound more confident than those people. And an average onlooker will be like, maybe this guy has a point. Maybe these people have a point, right? That is for when they choose to deny. Now, when it is not easy for them to deny, when the person who they are having a conversation with is somebody who knows what he's talking about and he's bringing the facts, and you can see clearly like what this person is presenting are actual facts of the matter with regards to the subject of Israel. When they see that that's what's going on, they ignore it or act like they didn't even hear it. I've seen it being done before. Like even Dave Smith did it in this conversation. Just act like he didn't hear what was being said, and then just keep repeating what he has been saying over and over again. Or the last one they do, which is something that Dave Smith did a lot. He did it a lot in this conversation. He did it a lot and over again in this conversation, or this debate that he did with Coleman, is that they just downplay it. And then for Dave Smith is kind of like an interesting case, because what's with the analogy, Dave? That's kind of like one thing I want to ask. What's with the weird, ridiculous analogies? Like, he came up with so many analogies in this debate that I'm like, my goodness, can you stop? Like, it doesn't help your case. This analogies doesn't help your case. It just makes it sound like you don't really know what you're talking about. And also, I don't know if Dave Smith is married, especially there's this point where he used this marriage analogy. And I'm like, is this guy married? Because it's so weird what he thought is obtainable in a marriage. It's kind of weird to me. Anyways, so yeah, we are going to be looking at all of that. I just noticed somebody in the chat say that I have beautiful eyes, and compliments like this are things that I cannot ignore. Where is that chat? Thank you for the compliment. Thank you for the compliment. Come on, where is it? I saw it not too long ago. Yes, look at that. Frank, did anyone ever tell you that you got beautiful eyes? No, you're the first to tell me. I'm blown away. I'm blown away right now. See me, I'm blushing. Anyways. So yeah, we are going to be looking at that conversation. And the clip that the conversation between, or the debate between Coleman Hughes and Dave Smith, what we played at the beginning of the stream is kind of like a snippet of kind of how the conversation went, that's what we just looked at. And some of the things that he said that kind of contradict things that he has said before, and how if Dave Smith is being judged by the standard of Dave Smith, by his own standards, Dave Smith falls short. Like, as far as this debate is concerned, by his own standard, he falls short. And we are going to look at that, right? That's what we'll be looking at right now. I have the stream already pulled up, and we'll start with this place, and we'll start with this conversation that is being had right here. So let's go.
Like right after 9/11, which was the idea that the terrorists hate us for our freedom, and they hate our goodness and our wonderfulness.
Okay, so here they are having a conversation about. The topic is why they hate us, like why we are hated by the Middle East, or why we are hated by Muslims. So that's kind of like the conversation they are having, and here. Dave Smith is not Dave Smith, rather. Dave Smith is kind of explaining that he doesn't buy the whole idea of they hate us because of our freedoms. They hate us because of our liberty. They hate us because we have everything, that we have so much that they envy. Those kind of claims that are often being made, which I don't even buy. I don't think that's why people in the Middle East or the Muslims or the Islamists, I don't think that's why they hate the West. I think the Islamists hate the West because they have been commanded to, because the Quran tells them to. They come up with a couple of other reasons, but that is not uh, uh, what is kind of driving them. Okay, they always like bring up other reasons to make it look like, oh, we have a legitimate justified cause to hate the West. But when you dig deeper, when you come to understand, you realize that it's all about Islam. It's all about what the religion teaches. It's all about what the religion wants its followers to do to those who are non-Muslims, essentially. So the hate us because of our freedom response to me as well is like, no, that's not true. That's not why the West. That's not why the Muslims, the Islamists. That's not why they have issues with. That's not why they have issues with the West. I just realized that I didn't add my chat bot here, so let me add it. Add. Oh, what is this? Cancel. Delete. Chat box. Sorry. Trying to add chat box and then I mistakenly added alert box. Okay. Done. Just did. Anyway, so that's kind of the where this conversation is right now, where it is starting off from. So let's continue.
Something like that. Like they would never like really exactly spell out what it was about our freedom, but like you're supposed to imagine that they're all motivated by, like, I don't know, women in miniskirts or something like that, or our right to free speech. And he was like, well, look, like there is a whole other huge element to this here that actually drives this conflict. And that's that they hate us for what we're doing over there, and that there are real grievances they have with America's foreign policy. And here they are. And let's really examine those and think about, is this worth it? Is this the right thing to be doing? Is this, productive for America? Is this moral? And I think that you have to almost like put yourself back in 2007. Like, this is still during the George W. Bush administration.
So his response here is also like, okay, the reason why these people hate us, for Dave Smith, the reason why the West is hated by the Islamists, the reason why there is this hatred is because his reason is because, we went over there and we did certain things to them. We, poked our nose into things that did not concern us, and these people are upset with us for that reason, and that is why they want to, do whatever it is they want to do to us. That's kind of like where he's coming at it from. He's like, oh, these people don't agree with what we have done to them. These people are kind of not happy with how we've treated them. Now, of course, all of this is ridiculous, because when you consider how the Middle East has operated with the rest of the West, and the aggression of them trying to take Western lands, and even the Barbary pirates and what they were doing, that even got the US involved, you realize that at the end of the day, the real provocators, the people who have really been on the attack and who has always been poking the West, has been the Middle East, way before even the West has ever involved themselves in the Middle East. And I'm talking about in recent times. Like, this is like before any of the wars in the last 40 years, before any of that, right? Before any of those things, the Middle East and North Africa as well has had an issue with the West for a very long time. This is something that goes back to the 7th century. But of course, for people like him, he doesn't see it like that. For him, all of this started when, when the West got themselves involved in Iraq and in Afghanistan and all those places. That is what gave the Osama bin Ladens of the world. That's what gave them the motivation, and that's what inspired their actions against the West. That's what inspired 9/11. It was nothing like, Sunni Islam and being, the Salafis, and how they view the commandment that Allah has given to them. It has nothing to do with any of that. So that's kind of the mentality with which Dave Smith is looking at all of this. And it is, of course, wrong. And I think there is enough evidence, in my opinion, to suggest that there is no reason to believe that. There is no reason to believe that is why the West, that's why the Middle East hates the West, or why radical Islam in the Middle East hates the West. I don't think there's any reason to believe that, but he does. He believes it strongly.
Administration. And there was, for someone like me, I had heard, say, like liberals who were against the war, but I had never really heard anyone break it down like that. And there was something about it that kind of like, it was almost like a portal where it allowed you to access a perspective from outside of the American empire. And I remember there was something about that was really...
For me, what he's saying here is kind of interesting. He's getting his perspective. He's getting an understanding of his perspective from Rand Paul. Rand Paul, or I don't know, some American, some Westerner is writing this. And he's like, oh, this perspective is not the Middle Eastern perspective. This perspective is not the Western perspective. It is a Middle Eastern perspective. And, oh, this is me getting the Middle Eastern perspective. And I'm like, bro, that's ridiculous. Somebody from the West is telling you this. And you are like, oh, this is a Middle Eastern perspective. And I'm like, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe it is actually a Western perspective. It's a Western way of viewing things. You're not getting any perspective that is anything other than Western, in my opinion. In fact, not even in my opinion. I think it's one thing I notice about Westerners. They kind of feel like, oh, finally I'm getting a perspective that isn't Western. And then I'm like, okay, tell me what that perspective is. And I listen to it and I'm like, that's 100% Western. I think Westerners are in search for this non-Western outsider perspective. And they're not getting it. Thus far, they're not getting it. What they are getting is purely Western perspective. And I don't maybe they don't understand how much the West has really like affected the rest of the world. And how much of how Westerners talk to you will be based on them perceiving you to be a Westerner. Like if you're asking a question to the average, let's say you're asking the average Nigerian. As a Westerner, you come to do an interview to the average Nigerian. Once they perceive that you are a Westerner, they start speaking to you in the language of the West. Like they start speaking the Western. What I mean by the language of the West, not like they are speaking to you in English. They are speaking to you in a way that they feel will be convincing to you, and in a way that they feel will persuade you. They're not giving you their true. For the most part, they're not giving you that. Yeah, for the most part, it's rare. It's often the case. It is often the case that, except when somebody from these parts of the world decide that, you know what, I'm going to be 100% honest with you, that they're going to tell you exactly how they really feel as a Nigerian. Like I've seen books written by Westerners about Nigeria or Africa or various parts of Africa. And they're like, somebody will read that and be like, oh, I just got into the soul of what it means to be an African. And I'm like, no, you are getting the African experience through the filter of a Westerner. That's what you are getting 100%,
I thought like profound to me, that you're like, oh, okay, yeah, there's another perspective about the American empire from outside it, and they've got some real problems with this thing. And I found that to be very interesting. The other big thing was he really introduced the topic of the Federal Reserve. Almost nobody else was talking about. I really I don't think I knew what the Federal Reserve was.
All right, and then he rambles on about Federal Reserve and all whatnot.
I even knew. And once I started reading about how the Federal Reserve actually works, it's like I was just blown away that
it's declaration of war on the United States for occupying the Holy Land. What it's complaining about, its main grievance, as evidenced by the fact that it's in the title and dominates the text, as you know, is that we had troops in Saudi Arabia that were there at the invitation of the Saudi government and stayed there for several years with permission from the Saudi government because they were afraid that Saddam might invade Saudi Arabia. Now, the only way that this is a legitimate grievance is if you add the special ingredient of radical Salafi Islam, which says that Christian crusader troops can't be near the holy sites. And by analogy, you imagine a situation like South Korea, where we were invited to put our troops over there during the Korean War. We fought a war. We've kept tens of thousands of troops there for much longer than Saudi Arabia. But there's no South Korean group flying planes into our buildings because they don't have that extra ingredient necessary, which is there's no Korean religion which says American troops can't be in Seoul. So this would be my core critique of the idea that they hate us for as Sam Harris would say, terrestrial grievances.
Which is kind of true, although he gives kind of like it's coming at it from, of course, Coleman Hughes is saying, oh, yes, there are all these grievances, but added on top of it is this final ingredients or main ingredients of religious extremism. Like, religious extremism coupled with the other things that they mention is kind of the reason. And what makes the Middle East different from every other part of the world where America has like had its military presence in is because of this extra layer of radical religious ideology and fundamentalist ideology. And for me, I'm like, no. Every other thing they say is a pretense, is a pretense, rather, not pretext. Pretense. It's just pretense. Everything they are saying, oh, this is what is driving us to do this. It's all pretense. They're just telling you things because they know that's something that if they say, someone in the West is going to be like, oh, they have a legitimate grievance. Oh, this is something that if I say it, the West is going to empathize with me. That's kind of where they are coming at it from when they say certain things like that. They are coming at it from the mindset of, oh, if I say it like this, then I might get the people in the West to empathize with me. If I point out any of this, I'm going to get people in the West to empathize with me. If I position the conflict or position my grievance in this way, if I position it this way, Westerners are going to agree with me. But that's not really the case at the end of the day. That's not really the case. You have people who, after the fall of the Ottoman Empire, are feeling like, essentially they are feeling like they've been defeated and they need to do something to bounce back. The Islamic Caliphate, Islam needs to bounce back. The Muslims need to bounce back. They are supposed to be uppermost, but right now they are not. So there's kind of like this religious grievance of, this is not where we are supposed to be. We have to do something. And what do we do? And this is kind of like their pushback to what they consider to be, okay, this is not the position we are supposed to be in the world. This is not where we are supposed to be. This is not what Allah has designed for us. This is not our position. Do you understand? So that's kind of like where these Islamists are coming from. So every other thing is a pretense. Oh, so the Saudi government invited the United States Army, and the United States Army said, okay, you invited us, we are here, and they have their presence in Saudi Arabia, and these people see it as an insult. These people see it as, oh, they are meddling in the Middle East, and they're not supposed to be here, and they see it as an attack on the sovereignty of, as an attack that warrants defensive jihad. You know, when somebody is already like, what you see with the terrorist groups that are targeting the West and want to destroy the West, especially those who want to engage in acts of defensive jihad, like Osama bin Laden and the people, Al Qaeda terrorists, is that they look for anything that they can interpret as an attack. And once anything can be interpreted as an attack, they say, okay, we are being attacked, therefore we are going to wage defensive jihad. And why do they wage defensive jihad? They wage defensive jihad because they don't have a caliphate. It's only under a caliphate that you can wage offensive jihad like ISIS is trying to do. But when you don't have a caliphate, what you can wage is defensive jihad against the West. So they look for anything that they can use as, oh, this is our interpretation of an attack from the West. So we are defending ourselves when we attack back. So that's kind of the mentality. Now, if you just go by, oh, this is what they wrote, this is what they said, these are the things that they've released that statement to the West for why they are doing what they are doing. If you just go by that, you get to the conclusion of, oh, look, they are mentioning a couple of things that I agree with. But if you get to understand these groups, really, really understand them and understand what the book, with which they are operating, you see that, oh, there is more to this than just what they just said. And the more to it is that, oh, no, they are doing this because of Islam. They are doing this because of what they understand from the reading of the Quranic text. That's where all of this is coming from. Every other thing is a pretense. It's just a reason. You know, there's this song that I think, I don't know, the way there's an original version of it, and then there's the version that I'm familiar with. The song says, I've been trying not to go off the deep end. Give me a reason. I've been trying not to go off the deep end. Give me a reason. So it's kind of how it is for the terrorists in the Middle East. It's like, I want to go off the deep end. Just give me a reason. Or I'm going to look for a reason. Anything can be a reason, depending on how I can interpret and manipulate events that are happening and make it look like actually I'm being attacked. That's what it is for these people, you know.
Yeah, I mean, so a couple things on that. I mean, number one, like the comparison, say, to like South Korea is just, it's really not a one-to-one comparison. I mean, there's a difference between having a military presence as we do in Germany or in South Korea or in Japan or something like that, where you have these are democracies. These are Western countries that.
So Dave Smith is saying, oh, you are making this analogy between South Korea and Saudi Arabia. And you are saying, oh, but we have a military presence in South Korea, yet no, we've not had any terror attack from South Korea. Well, South Korea is a democracy, but you know, Saudi Arabia is not. So because Saudi Arabia is not, then it's not a perfect analogy. And I'm like, it might look like he's making a good point with that analogy, but I'm like, okay, so what other instance of what an example of America having its military presence in a country is going to live up to being a perfect analogy? What other is it? Let's look. Let's see if there's okay. What about North Korea? Oh, it's a good example to point out North Korea. North Korea is a dictatorship, and America's presence in South Korea is a deterrence for North Korea. North Korea is a dictatorship. So why has there been no terrorist attack from North Korea to against America? Why has there not been any of that in recent years? Why have we not had a 9/11 that was orchestrated by North Korea, but we have from Saudi Arabia?
At like, again, I'm not like defending modern nation states or democracy or anything like that, but there is at least somewhat of a free market, somewhat of a democratic situation. The people like participate to some degree in their government. I don't exactly believe that, but at least that's the way the thing is sold. What you're talking about in Saudi Arabia was using military bases. The purpose of the military bases there was for the bombing and blockade campaign against Iraq. And bin Laden, in that letter that you're talking about, laid this out very clearly. Now, I'm certainly not arguing with you that there is like no.
But how is that any different? I don't. You still say, oh, this is not a democratic government, whatever. Okay, so how is that really? How does that differentiate between what is happening in Korea? Let's not even say North or South. What is happening in Korea and what is happening in Saudi Arabia? There is the U.S. military presence in South Korea, and it's serving as a deterrence to North Korea. So the people being affected essentially is North Korea, or the people who have something with who have an issue with America's military presence in that region will be North Korea. Yet, we've not had citizens from North Korea carry out devastating acts of terror on the West or any part of the West whatsoever. So it doesn't just go. You cannot just say, oh well, this is not the same because here is different because, you know, we have these military bases here because we wanted to fight the war in Iraq, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, the US had their military base in Korea after the war, after the Korean War, which they helped to fight. So I don't understand this. It is not the same. How is it not the same exactly?
Affect that Islam has on the way that, say, bin Laden or his men were thinking about these things. But if you're talking about, and there's been many books written on this, but if you're talking about like what actually gets people to sign up to give their life and go kill other people, it's almost always the result of where, like, it almost always comes from a situation where your recruiting shtick, if you're bin Laden trying to get suicide bombers, is to point at all the innocent people who have been killed by this group that you're going after. In fact, even our own...
Okay, first of all, Osama bin Laden's letter that he wrote to the West was not a form of recruitment, okay? Osama did not write that letter to recruit members. That is his message to the West. I'm not sure that is his message to potential members of Al-Qaeda. That's not his pitch to people who want to join his terrorist group or his terrorist movement. Just like that is not the pitch to any Islamic terrorist group that I'm aware of. Take Boko Haram, for example. Yes, they are always going to point out to, oh, look at the state of the nation right now. Look at the state of Nigeria right now. Yeah, they're going to be like, oh, look at the poverty in the country. Look at the injustice or the corruption in the government and all whatnot. They're going to point all of that out. But at the end of the day, they are all going to circle back to Islam and be like, the reason why we have to overthrow the government, we have to establish a caliphate or whatever action these terror groups choose to do is because the Quran has given us has empowered us to do it. So they believe that they have this empowerment, this responsibility placed on their shoulders by the God that they serve. They believe that strongly, and that's why they go out to do these things. It has nothing to, it really has nothing to do with any of those, like I said, any of those pretenses that they point to. Yes, there is that, but what is going to make a Muslim, what is going to make a Salafi Muslim join Al-Qaeda is, and not listen to the Saudi government. You need to understand something, Dave. Muslims are supposed to listen to their leaders. Like, it doesn't matter who that leader is. That is what the Quran has commanded them to do. A Muslim is supposed to listen to his leader, even if he's an Ethiopian with raising head. That's how Muhammad said it. Even if that's a Ethiopian with raising head, you are supposed to listen to him if he is your leader. That is what an average Muslim would do in Saudi Arabia. The crown prince and the king is your leader, your Islamic leader. You listen to him. So what is someone like Osama bin Laden going to say to the Saudis to get them to be on board to want to commit acts of terror? It's simple. He's going to tell them, this is not a legitimate leader. This is not a legitimate leader, because within the Islamic framework, there are ways to circumvent whatever it is that your leader is doing. There is a way to be an insubordinate. Okay? So essentially, you can be an insubordinate if you perceive this leader not to be Islamic enough, to be kind of like an apostate, or be somebody who is not following what the Quran has commanded them to do. When you perceive a leader as such, then you have some kind of onus to disrespect them and go against them and be kind of like an insubordinate to them. Okay? And especially when you don't have a caliphate, who exactly is that leader at the end of the day? Who exactly is that Islamic leader? You're supposed to obey the caliph. You don't have a caliph. So they go around that, and then they have to come up with other Islamic reasons to do everything. Listen, in the Middle East, especially devout Muslim, everything about their life is dictated by the Quran. Everything about them is dictated, is determined, is controlled by the Quran. Everything they do is controlled by the Quran. So what really what makes them not to act like North Korea is because of the Quran. And because somehow there is a way in which within the Quran they can convince themselves that this is what we are supposed to do. Not just the Quran, of course, but the Quran, the Hadith, the Islamic literature on laws and how Muslims are supposed to behave. So it's not just, there is the Islamic element. It's not just every other thing you are mentioning. And if you understand, and I think if everyone can understand the Islamic dimension, not downplay it, not disregard it, not say like Dave Smith, oh, I'm not going to say that Islam does not have a particular role that it plays, but to actually understand that role, I think that's the problem. Like, people don't really understand the role of Islam in all of this. It's kind of like a portion of it that is overlooked. I've listened to so many people talk about it, and it's kind of like, for me, like my frustration with the conversation on this issue is kind of, it's kind of like my frustration with how the conversations often take place. People kind of, oh, there's this Islamic element, and then they don't just like. I'm like, can you explore that a little bit more? Can you like explore it a little bit more and understand just how crucial Islam is to the whole equation, and not just say, oh, there is this Islamic element as if it's just an element. When it's supposed to be, when you're supposed to look at it as the element, it is the element. You know.
FBI, when they do these sting / entrapment runs, where they've done dozens of since 9/11, that's always what they go to them with. Aren't you pissed off about American foreign policy? Don't you have all these grievances about what they do over there? And so, yes, of course, these were radical Islamists, and so everything is filtered through that worldview. And I have no desire to absolve Islam of any problems that it has. Certainly not radical Islam, but look. At the end of all of that, what you're still left with is that they do not want our troops in the Arabian Peninsula. They do not want our bases in Saudi Arabia. And it's
So, Dave, you're not getting it. There are other people that don't want U.S. troops where U.S. troops are. Why are these ones acting different? And you're like, oh, it doesn't matter why. What matters is that they do not want our troops there, therefore. And I'm like, no. Explore why these people are different from every other group that has an issue with U.S. military base being close to them.
a fair enough question, even if you're going to say it's some combination of the two, to say, well, why exactly do we need to have those bases there? Why is that? Is that worth the price of dealing with this terrorism issue? And you know, even if Saudi Arabia was concerned that Saddam Hussein was going to invade the country, are there other ways that we could give Saudi Arabia some security guarantees? Are there other ways? Do we really need to be slaughtering Iraqis in a non-war period? So again, look, there's
Dave, that is neither here nor there. Okay, the question is about why do they hate us? Okay, or maybe not just why do they hate us, but more of why do they attack us? You understand? That's kind of why do they attack us? And you are like, oh, it's because they hate us or because they don't like our presence in the region. And the response is no. There are other people who don't like our presence in their area. They don't like it, but they are not doing what these people are doing. Why is that? And you are not really like addressing that. Instead, you are rather just they're just doing well. They don't. We might say this, we might say that, but they don't. And I'm like, okay, so why is their case different?
And by the way, it's not just the military bases. There's a long list of grievances that they have, some that are completely incoherent and just not justified. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, the element of...
So why take them serious? If these people are... Dave, just listen, Dave. If somebody gives you a list of reasons why they are angry with you, and you go through like 7, let's say they give you 7 reasons why they are angry with you, and let's say they give you 10 reasons. Out of the 10 reasons they gave you, 7 of them are just ridiculous. And 3 are like, oh, they make a good point here. Are you going to go ahead and say, oh, these people who gave me 10 reasons, with 7 of them being ridiculous, are really have a legitimate grievance against me? Or you are going to say, I feel these are all just pretenses. These are just pretenses at the end of the day. Some of these are just ridiculous. Like, these people cannot really be saying this, or they cannot really mean this at the end of the day, because this is ridiculous. Like, is this your reason? You could come up with something else other than this. You know.
It's the element of American domination over the region that I think is pretty predictably going to lead to resistance.
So a few things. One, I would say you drew a distinction between a democracy on one hand, like a democracy we have our troops in, and a non-democracy. South Korea wasn't a democracy for a very long time, so I would just point that out.
Fair enough.
What I'm arguing,
they may not be anymore, right?
Yeah. Right. Well, what I'm arguing is more than that. This gets filtered through Islamism. I think the equation, if we were to make a recipe of what makes a terrorist group like Al-Qaeda tick, it has to have all the ingredients. It has to have these grievances, but it also has to have a jihadi ideology that we are not responsible for,
Well,
right? Because otherwise
sorry,
it just otherwise the behavior just doesn't make any sense, right? Like another one of their grievances was that we allowed Bosnian Muslims to die for too long in the 90s, right? I.e., that we didn't intervene soon enough.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all over the world, we don't intervene soon enough. We didn't intervene in Rwanda soon enough. We didn't intervene in Liberia soon enough. We could have saved, in many of these cases, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of lives, but we don't have Rwandan terrorists flying planes into our buildings. We don't have Liberians blowing up embassies. And so there has to be this additional variable that is the lens through which they interpret all of these foreign policy decisions.
And Dave Smith, this is also supposed to be like, when you look at this fact that he just pointed out, it's also supposed to be a reason for Dave Smith to be like, okay, I see where you are coming from, at the very least. Because, and why I say that is because, imagine people are having a grievance with you, and they're angry with you when you do something, and they're angry with you when you don't. So, Al-Qaeda is angry with the US because they intervened. And also is angry with them because they intervened. And also not angry with them when they didn't intervene soon enough. So is the intervention really the problem at this point, Dave Smith? Don't you see exactly that these people are just going to pick whatever thing they find to be annoying or outrageous and then latch on to that? But at the end of the day, the real thing pushing them is Islam.
Well, so are you saying that? Okay. So, like as I had already mentioned, yes, I don't think all of the grievances are legitimate. That certainly was one that isn't legitimate. But there were several other that I think are. But what exactly, when you're saying they need to have this Muslim element to it as well, in order for what? Like in order to do terrorism?
Yeah,
to
justify killing civilians on the basis of these other things. In other words,
I mean, I don't know. There were Irish terrorists, there were Jewish terrorists, of course, as you know, in the lead up to the creation of the state of Israel. There's been terrorists.
Right, but those were local ethnic disputes between the Irish and the British, between the Jewish and the Palestinians.
Thank God he's pointing it out. But you're comparing local terrorists, people who are committing acts of terror within a particular region, to global terrorists, people who are hijacking planes. Okay, the Irish had terrorists, but how many of those Irish terrorists have hijacked planes and flew them into tall buildings to make a political point?
What justifies going abroad, flying planes into buildings thousands of miles away, except for the fact that they interpret all of these foreign policy actions that we do everywhere. We station troops in South Korea. They don't fly into our buildings, right?
Yeah,
they
I
don't
understand,
have that
but
additional religious element.
It doesn't really prove anything. Like if you were going to say, if there's, let's say there was like a husband, he comes home, his wife is in bed with another man, he pulls out his gun, he murders both of them. And you were to say, I think the motivating factor here is that she was having an affair, cheating on him. And then you were to say, well, I know another situation where a guy was being cheated on and he didn't murder both of them. Like, okay, that still doesn't prove that that's not the motivating factor here. And it doesn't even prove that there's any needed extra element other than sometimes it goes this way and sometimes it doesn't. But the idea of like, I mean, if we're just...
Oh God! Here is the analogy that I'm talking about. Here is the analogy that I was talking about. The crazy analogies. Husband. Okay, to his credit, I see his point. Okay, let me not act like he doesn't have a point. I see his point. I see the point he's trying to make. Okay, I see the point he's trying to make, saying people carry out acts of terror differently, and people respond differently to grievances, especially when you annoy somebody. There is a grievance that you're supposed to expect. But I will go a step further in my response to what he said here, which is that there is a normal grievance, a normal response, and there is an abnormal response. Okay, there is a normal response and there is an abnormal response. Now, anybody who knows who sees his spouse cheating on them and decides to kill kill the spouse and the person that, and the person, who they are cheating on them with, that's an extreme response. Anybody can understand that. That's basically it's not a normal response. First of all, okay, it's not a normal It's not a let's say it's kind of understandable, but it's extreme. That's one. You have to admit that it is extreme, and not everyone will go to the extreme, and that is the truth. Not everyone is going to respond in an extreme fashion. So the question is, what will make one person? That's all we are asking, Dave. It's not to leave the analogy. What we are asking is, what makes one person to behave this way and makes another person not behave this way? You cannot say that it is just the cheating. Do you understand where we are coming from, Dave? You cannot just say it is just the cheating that made A kill his spouse and the person that they were cheating on them with, and B did not. It's not just, there has to be something else. Maybe this person has an anger issue. Maybe this person has a propensity to violence. Maybe there are so many. You get where we are coming from, Dave. Like, there is something extra. It's not just, people respond differently to different situations. Yes, there is normal response, and then there is an extreme response. And you have to ask yourself, why do people engage in extreme responses? Like, why do people do this, go too far? And you cannot just say, it's just the cheating. Do you understand where we are coming from, Dave? It's just the cheating. Okay, so that is the same thing we are asking with the Middle East. Why do the Middle East why do these people, especially these people, respond differently? Why do they respond differently? Why would they want to risk their life, become suicide bombers, fly planes into buildings, do all these these horrific acts? Why would they want to go that far? And why? What will make them want to do that? It is like I say this a lot when it comes to the issue in Nigeria, especially when people say Islamic terrorism in Nigeria is a response to they say Islamic terrorism in Nigeria is a response to the economic situation of the country. And I'm like, everybody is going through the economic situation in the country. Everyone is going through poverty. Everyone is going through lack of government, broken government infrastructure. Everyone is experiencing the corruption. Everyone is going through it. We are all through it, right? But none of us is like, okay, the solution to this is to go and kill other innocent people who are going through the same thing that we are going through. Like, look at Boko Haram, for example. Boko Haram, someone will say, the reason why Boko Haram exists is because of economic, the state of the economy, unemployment, poverty, hunger. So Boko Haram is a response to the hunger in the land. And what they do is to go out to kill other hungry people and other poor people and other people who are also in the same, they are in the same, going through the same problem. And I'm like, how is it that one person is poor and then they are trying to make the most out of their life? Another person is poor and his response is to kill his fellow poor man. And he's like, I'm killing this poor guy because I do not like the poverty I'm in. Therefore, I go and kill another poor person. Have you seen the villages that these people attack? These are poor villages. Trying to the people that are barely getting by. People who cannot, people who cannot, fend, they sometimes, it is difficult for them to afford just 3 meals a day. Like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They are unable to afford that a day. Sometimes they have to eat twice. Sometimes they have to eat once. These are very poor people. They kill pregnant women. They kill old women. They rape girls. What level of extreme poverty will make me, my response to extreme poverty, I'm going to go out and rape a bunch of women right now. That is my response. So it's not a question of, but everybody reacts differently. It's like, this is an unreasonable response. This is an unreasonable response. If I have a problem with the US interfering in my politics, what I want to do is to convince my government that invited them over to kick them out. That is the same thing that happened in Niger and Mali. Okay, there was a military coup, and when the military government took over, they told the French to leave, and the French left. They did not drive a bomb or whatever. They did not plant a bomb in the French parliament, or they did not try to assassinate the French prime minister. They did not try to blow up buildings in France. They did not try to do any of that. It was simple. We do not like you here. Our government wants you here. We are going to overthrow the government, and when we do that, we are going to kick you out. And that's what they did. That is a normal response. And when Mali did that, Niger did the same thing. And they invited the Russians because they wanted the Russians around. So why didn't these terrorists try this method? Why was their immediate go-to was, oh, let's hijack planes and blow up the World Trade Center? And it's one thing I really need people to, it's something that I think is important to stress. Because this thing he's saying is synonymous with resistance is justified when people are occupied. His version is resistance is justified when people have grievances, legitimate or otherwise. If I have a grievance, then whatever I do is justified. It doesn't matter. Just you might disagree with what I did, but I have grievances, therefore it's kind of justified. And I'm like, whatever grievance you have, there is a way to go about it. There is a way to go about it. There is the right way, and then there is the wrong way. And of course, terrorists go about it what people in the West will consider the wrong way, because in Islam, that is the right way.
Playing out this hypothetical, if you put the shoe on the other foot and you imagine that China, no, let's just say like China had overthrown our government and propped up a dictator and then started, occupying us or putting military bases in America, I think there'd be some Americans who would be grabbing their guns and they would become terrorists in the eyes of this new ruling regime. And I bet they'd be screaming about Jesus while they did it. So I don't.
Even the American Revolution was not fought in the name of Jesus. Okay? The American soldiers fighting the Brits did not have crosses on their flags. That war was not fought in the name of Jesus. Okay, so don't do that. Don't do that. And yes, if let's say China conquers America, yes, America will want to revolt. But with revolting that is the even when when the American Civil War was being fought, Americans did not fly over to the UK to wreak havoc over there. It was just, in fact, they came. The British Army came to America to that was essentially how it happened, and then the Americans resisted. It wasn't what you are seeing now. They are not the same thing.
Actually think that's right. The Irish became terrorists against the British because they were the ones who they had a beef with. Now, if you're saying, well, why do they come halfway around the world, as if that's some huge different factor? It's like, oh, because I guess America is the world empire and we are really the final sovereign over all of this area. And there are airplanes now. So I don't think there's anything, like, again, I'm not trying to absolve Islam of any responsibility that they might have. Might have.
You are. Dave, you don't you say, I'm not trying to absorb. People do this all the time when they have conversations. They say the opposite of, they say they are not trying to do what they just finished doing. Like, I'm not trying to insult you, but you are stupid, kind of. You get what I'm saying? I'm not trying to insult you, but I think you are mad, kind of. Like, what is that supposed to mean? You just insulted somebody. You're like, I'm not trying to. You just downplayed, you just ignored, you just overlooked the role that Islam plays, and you're like, I'm not trying to do that. You just did that.
I think we're losing contact with with these analogies because we're talking about a situation where mostly Saudis flew planes into our buildings, and we had the permission of the Saudi government to be there, right? So we're not talking about a situation where we overthrew the regime in Saudi Arabia and now the Saudis are pissed. We're talking about a situation where we had every right and the invitation of the Saudi regime, and there is this terrorist veto. And I guess one of my questions to you is that if we live in a system of nation states, if the whole, liberal international order is to work, it has to mean that we can't take the veto of a terrorist organization within a country to mean more than the word of the head of state that says, actually, we have an agreement. They want us to be here. The king of your country wants us to be here. We have his permission. You don't get to veto us being here by killing civilians.
Yeah. Okay. So just to be clear, you're right. We're mixing up things here a little bit. Yeah. No, I'm not claiming that America overthrew the government of Saudi Arabia. I guess it's just the point I'm making is we're getting into like whether radical Islam, how much of a necessary ingredient that really is. And so I was just saying, like, imagine some faraway power overthrew our government. But yeah, we did overthrow the government of Iran, Iraq, Libya, Syria, Somalia, Yemen. We've done quite a bit of overthrowing governments in that portion of the region, many in the last few decades. And so, look, I mean, to say that you have
none of that, Dave. But none of that was the reason for Al Qaeda. None of that was the reason for Al Qaeda, though. I mean, am I wrong? Libya was when was the whole Libya distant? When was Gaddafi killed? Let me just so that I will get my. When was he overthrown? Gaddafi was overthrown on the 20th of October 2011. Okay, when was Iran when was Iraq invaded? In fact, Iraq was invaded on the 20th of March 2003. Okay. What about I don't know, Afghanistan? Afghanistan was on the 7th of October 2001. And when was 9/11? When was 9/11? 9/11 was on 11th of September 2001. So you can see that the only thing that is close to 9/11 was the attack was the invasion of Afghanistan, I guess. But every other attack, every other overthrowing of governments happened after 9/11. Most of it happened after 9/11. So you cannot say that is the reason for the reason for 9/11 cannot happen after 9/11. Okay, it cannot happen after 9/11. So this, but we overthrew this government. It doesn't factor into the equation here, especially when the terror attack that these people committed happened way before any of this. So, no, the U.S. was not invading Saudi Arabia when the king of Saudi Arabia invited them over and wanted military presence, military presence of the United States in its region, in its country. Okay, so no, your analogies and the way you are trying to downplay and overlook what is being brought before you is not working. It's not working because there's so many things you are overlooking. And there's so many things you are ignoring and you are downplaying and making it look like Islam is in no way playing a major factor, because it is. It is. The truth is, if you remove the element of Islam, you might not know this, but there are so many countries that believe, I don't know how true it is, Nigeria being one of them, in Africa, that believe that the West plays a major role to why they are the way they are, for the poverty, for the corruption, for everything. And of course, there is reason to believe that because many African leaders, you may not know this, but many African leaders are allied with the United States. Okay? In Nigeria, for example, we had what is essentially an election rigger. Sorry, I'm trying to check something. We had what is essentially an election rigger in power. Okay? We had an election rigger in power, and he's essentially an illegitimate, he's an illegitimate leader, essentially. That's what we had in power. And he was congratulated by Joe Biden. He was congratulated by Emmanuel Macron. He was congratulated by every other leader in the world. Everybody was congratulating him as, oh, this guy is somebody who won fair and square. And we didn't take it the right way. We were not happy with that. Many Nigerians were offended at the fact that leaders all around the world, we are recognizing this president we consider to be illegitimate, and we are willing to work with him and to collaborate with him. We did not consider this president legitimate. And we are not the only nation in Africa that feel that way. We have, especially the Francophone West African countries, have really, really suffered on that, like this kind of, what I call it, Western meddling in their domestic affairs. They have suffered it greatly, and in greater measures than anything Nigeria is even experiencing. Yet, you don't have terrorists, domestic terrorists from this region going to these countries to commit acts of terror. You don't have that. You might even have people who cause trouble within the nation. Like in Nigeria, we've had IPOB. We've had, like from the south, we've had like IPOB. We've had MEND, the emancipation of the movement for the emancipation of the Niger Delta. That was also labeled a terrorist group from the south. We've had various factions, people who were, who felt disenfranchised and who had to resort to violence to get the attention of the government. But none of them said, oh, you know what? Nigeria is not really our problem. The problem is the foreign powers that seem to want to work with this illegitimate government that we have, this tyrannical government that we have. Do you understand? And just to show you how Islam plays a major role in this is Nigeria have most of the horrible presidents that we've had in this country. Is the truth. Most of the horrible presidents we've had in this country, like presidents who, when they were leaders of the country, there was serious, not just serious, there wasn't insecurity, there was just this heavy government crackdown and the worst kind of abuse of human rights you can imagine going on in the country. I'm talking about Babangida. I'm talking about Sani Abacha. Yet under this regime that we are very tyrannical, that we are very oppressive, that we are like really, really using, like violating human rights, suspending the constitution, like they will just throw people in prison, people will disappear, people were executed. Under this very, 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 very evil regime, tyrannical regime of by every metric whatsoever, under every one of this regime, you didn't have Islamic terrorism. Do you know why? Because the leaders of this regime, from Sani Abacha to Ibrahim Babangida, they were all Muslims. The head of these regimes, we are Muslims. And the Muslims will not attack their fellow Muslim. But when you have the least, I'm just using Nigeria as an example, when you have the least ineffective, when you have the least ineffective president, that is a democratically elected president, by the way, just the least of them, like somebody who is like, okay, he's not like he's in the ocean of bad presidents, he's not that bad. You get what I'm saying? Like, he's bad, but he's not that bad. Yet under that regime, or under the leadership of such a president, because that president is not a Muslim, you see Muslims revolt. You see them form terrorist organizations and start attacking the nation. You see them kidnap women and girls. Why do they do that? Because they consider this Christian president illegitimate. And it's the same thing that we are pointing out in the Middle East. There is that Islamic element that you cannot ignore. What's going on?
Kids, he's got a point on that.
So
the one about us propping up
here's
Israel.
What I want to say, Dave.
Well, let me just real.
Why is my stuff restarting? Give me a second. Okay.
quickly, I'll just end this very quickly. It goes, this is kind of the whole spirit of George Washington's farewell speech, that it's like, look, you get involved in all these entangling alliances and it causes nothing but disaster for your own country. So yes, I think it's reasonable to look at some of those grievances and go, we should have no part in any of this.
So a few things, and then I want to move on to Ron Paul's other big pillar. Sure. You said the big awakening for you was this Ron Paul thing of why they hate us. And I'm really addressing myself to that point very simply. If Al-Qaeda did not believe in a Salafist extreme Islamist ideology, which is the most radical corner of Sunni Islam, I'm not saying it's all of Islam, not even most of it. Take away that one ingredient, we could do everything else the same in the Middle East as we had done, overthrowing, backing the overthrow of Iran, the tough sanctions on Saddam Hussein, which caused a humanitarian crisis, putting our troops in Saudi Arabia, and they would not have flown planes into our buildings. That is my claim. That's my claim. And I think, and I'm addressing myself to this question of why they hate us. I agree with you. It's not they hate us for our freedoms. It's that they hate us because they have a very powerful ideology, which makes them prejudge any actions by what they consider to be non-Muslim, Christian crusader, etc. And to me, it's crucial to understand if this issue of why they hate us, in fact, is important. And I'm not sure, I don't think that we can live with, I don't think the world, I don't just mean America, I don't think the world can live with a foreign policy that factors in the worst, most destabilizing elements of other societies, right? Because the Saudi regime, complain about their human rights all you want, and obviously one can write a book, and books have been written on that. They have a much better chance of ruling Saudi Arabia and ruling it in a way so that the people flourish than the Bin Ladenites. And if it were the case that in Korea, with our troops there, if there was some Korean terrorist group that said we can't have these Americans on sacred Korean soil anymore, it would not make sense to listen to that terror group over the Korean government and risk taking away our deterrence and make our foreign policy basis on that decision when the Korean government is trying to get rid of these groups anyway in order to create flourishing societies. So I think we have to be on the side of the elements in these societies, these developing societies that are trying to haltingly and with many foibles bring their countries forward and make their countries prosperous.
Yeah, I think Coleman made two very important points. And of course, it's not even Salafism. It's, like I will say, it is Islam, which is parts of it is currently understood by the Salafis. But beyond just that, it's not beyond just that. Is there's something else he pointed out, which is the fact that. Give me a second. Beyond just that, there's something else he pointed out, which is the fact that if you want to do international relations, I think it would be more better for us, for the world, to relate with people who don't have radicalist ideology, that don't have this kind of, like, just like how, for example, it would be better, right? It would be better for Afghanistan to be ruled by a king who may be crazy. He may be, if there is a crown prince of Saudi Arabia ruling Afghanistan, he will be better than the Taliban. Do you understand? It will be better than the Taliban. You can say, oh, but the people want the Taliban. But if you see the outcome of the Taliban, it will be better that you have somebody like the crown prince of Saudi Arabia than that you have the Taliban. The same thing in Saudi Arabia. It will be better that you have the crown prince of Saudi Arabia in power in Saudi Arabia than Al-Qaeda. That is also something that is important. So all this, if we never got ourselves involved, the West will not be hated. It's also not true, because if you understand Islam, you know that Islam is a religion that wants to conquer the world. And yes, they may not be able to reach the West now because they have immediate people they want to attack, maybe Europe first and Africa, which are like the two continents that they are majorly focusing on. But it doesn't mean when they are done with that, they will not come for you next. And if Islam is able to conquer Africa, Europe, and all of Asia, if they are able to do that, if they succeed in doing that, then what chance does the United States have against them? So instead of just staying by and watching and say, okay, you know what, these people will never get that strong. Why not ensure that they don't? You know. So yeah, if you understand, and again, I think it's one thing to really point out that about everyone who wants to understand the Middle East, and I want to understand why Muslims behave the way they behave. Don't come at it from the way someone like Dave Smith is coming at it. Don't do that. This, let me understand it from my Western perspective kind of approach, because that's how he's coming at it. That is how Dave Smith is coming at it. He's not coming at it from the approach of, what do they think? What is the Islamic ideology? I've been hearing about this. I mean, if I'm somebody like Dave Smith, at least the very least I can do is, okay, I've been hearing a lot about Islam. I've been hearing a lot about this Islam and how it influences these Muslims to behave. Okay, what is it about Islam? Let me look into the religion. Let me understand the ideology. Let me understand why people always mention Islam. At least that basic curiosity, I guess, to say, okay, you know what, I want to understand this religion and I want to understand why it is a problem and why it is a major reason. The way for Dave Smith to refute the claim is not to come up with all this ideology and to come up with, oh, look at what they said, look at what they did not say, and then make, no. The best way for Dave Smith to refute this ideology is to say, Islam does not produce this, or Salafism does not produce this. But Dave Smith knows that he cannot make that case, or he doesn't even want to explore it because he's afraid of what he might find, or he's already made up his mind and doesn't care about facts. Either one of this is true with regards to how Dave Smith is approaching this subject. And yeah, that's my view of this. The only way for Dave Smith to refute this, to refute the claim that Islam plays a major role and Salafism is the major ingredient, is to say Salafism is not, and Salafism does not have that effect, or even Islam does not have that effect, and Islam is not really the pretense. I mean, this other issue are not really. It's not really just pretense. They are actual issues, and Islam is just one of the other variables in this. That even if you put it or you subtract it, this is going to continue. But he cannot do that, and he will not do that. So on this point, it is safe to say that Coleman has made his case, and he made his case very well. And Dave Smith, all he has done here is come up with analogies that just are not, it's not working. And also to kind of ignore the case, the case to be made about how Islam is a major is the major contributor to the hatred that people in the Middle East, especially these radicals in the Middle East, have for the West and for America especially.
Okay, last word, and then let's get to the other pillar.
Yeah, I guess I just am fundamentally unconvinced by this assertion that Islam is this necessary ingredient. I mean, there's been
radical Salafi Islam. I just want to be very precise.
Well, I don't know. The Iranians seem to have a lot of resentment toward us for overthrowing their government.
Oh, by the way, sorry, just to clarify, I'm sorry to interrupt you. What I mean, any ideology, which many ideologies could fit this hole. It's not only radical Sunni Islam. Other
I don't
ideologies
think it's only.
could fit.
I don't think it's only Islam. To be honest, I mean,
Yeah,
look,
correct.
violence is used all the time, and groups who are oppressed violently often use violence in retaliation. We had slave revolts in this country that were incredibly violent. There's been all types of violence used by every major religion, maybe not every minor one, but every major religion for sure. I just don't agree with that.
I guess Buddhism is not a major religion as far as Dave Smith is concerned, but okay.
At all. I think that the obvious element that when missing, none of this would happen, is America's domination and killing of innocent people in this part of the world. You know, when the King Crane Commission went to Syria after World War I, and they held this huge polling apparatus that tens of thousands of people were interviewed, and they overwhelmingly voted that they wanted America to rule over Syria in a League of Nations mandate. And the reason it's really the opposite of what the George W. Bush administration said. It's not, they don't hate us for our freedom. They actually kind of loved us for our freedom. They viewed America as the good guys. America were the ones, the city on a hill, who were all about liberty. They hated the British and they hated the French. Why is that? Well, because they were dominating them. It's like the most natural human tendency on earth to hate the people who dominate you and violently oppress you. And it's quite often the case that people embrace violence in response. I don't think that's unique to Islam. I think that's more of a thing that brings us all together. I don't mean to be such an egalitarian on your show here. I assure you I'm not one. But
Dave has a point. I know, right? He doesn't, but yeah, the point is not the point of contention, but it's a point. That's the thing. He has a point, but it's not the point of contention. I guess the way this conversation is being framed is kind of making it look like he does have a point, but that is not the point of the point of contention is not. I mean, does North Korea hate America? Yes. Does many Nigerians? It will shock you, but it's the truth. Many Nigerians, if you ask them, they will tell you that they don't like America. They hate America. They hate the West. Many Muslim majority countries also hate the West for various reasons. So hatred for the West is going to exist. But what is driving the attack, the terrorist attack, is the main point. What is resulting in terror? What is the motivation for terror? Not just the hatred. Of course, there's always going to be hating people. Many people in Britain hate the French. Okay? But if a Brit is going to attack the French or is going to attack France, we're no longer talking about just hatred on on the level of we hate people we don't, or whatever it is. It's not going to come from the just the mere normal hatred you have for somebody who you consider to be an oppressor. Of course, if you see somebody as an oppressor, if you see an entity as an oppressor, you are going to hate them. But hate them enough to do this. What is driving this hatred to this degree is what we are asking. What is the extra ingredients? What is it that makes this hatred transform from just a feeling to an action, to this kind of action, especially this kind of action coming from these people in this region? And it's not, it's factual that Islam is playing a major role in the conflict resulting in this. That is the truth. Islam is what is driving this. The religion is what is driving this. And I'm not like Coleman who will say, oh, it's not Islam, it's radical Islam or Salafism. No, it's Islam. Is Islam, the perfect, great understanding of it. The best understanding of it, interpreted by scholars for centuries. That is it. So I don't think Dave saying, oh, but people always hate people and there's always going to be hatred of the oppressor is kind of, no. I mean, America is hated all over the world at this point for various reasons. Right? There's this hatred around the world for America. Give me a second. Something is distracting me. Let me look at it. Let me look at it. I'm coming. Okay. So, like I was saying, hatred for America is kind of like a global thing at this point. Everyone is like the trendy thing to do in the world right now is just to hate on America. So, but nobody is going to take it the extra step. No, not everyone is going to do that. And there's only one group that has done that. Why did they go the extra step? What is making them go the extra mile in their hatred? It's Islam. And they have hated. It's not this. But after World War I, there was this poll that was done in Syria, and after the poll came out, it was, but Barbary pirates were attacking the U.S. way before that. Why was that happening? Because they are not Muslims. These are non-Muslims, and because you are non-Muslims, we are attacking you. That's what the Barbary. That's the response from the Barbary pirates.
think that is one of the things that humans have in common. So I just don't see it as, violence. I think that violence, we like to distinguish between terrorism and counterterrorism, but that's really usually not much of a distinction, or at least there's usually not a very objective definition for it. Israel is quite comfortable using.
And somehow this has gotten into Israel. But now he's saying that there is no difference between terrorism and counterterrorism. Yeah. Yep. That is, there's no difference between terrorism and this is like saying there's no difference between the police and a criminal. They both use guns. They both shoot guns. They both do things that result in the death of people. Sometimes innocent people, they are both carrying out, police fighting crime, carry out acts of violence at the end of the day. And their response to fighting crime can come in the form of destruction of life and property. So at the end of the day, what's the difference between the police officer and a criminal? This is the kind of thinking we get from Dave Smith, because there is no objective difference, as far as he's concerned, I guess.
Lots of violence right now. They're quite comfortable killing a building full of innocent people to get a guy that they don't like. And there's been acts of terrorism. Some argue Israel introduced terrorism into the pre.
Well, there's some that are arguing this. Anyway, let's not get into that. This is not the part of this interview that I want to move from. If we are done with this first part, now we are going to go to this one. Which is did Israel influence the Iraq war? But before we proceed, please, guys, smash the like button. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel, and you can support the channel by going to NIG Perspective, www.buymeacoffee.com/NIG Perspective. Okay, you can go there to support the channel and give me your money. There is the link posted by John. You can go there and send your money. And I also want to recognize the super chats that I received earlier. Where is that super chat? From Ballistic Mind. He said, exactly, the Barbary pirates attacked America and enslaved Americans before America set foot in any Muslim country. Dave is excusing terror. That is 100. He is, but he will claim, of course, that he is not. And that he's not trying to excuse Islam, but he's just saying, why do they attack us? Maybe if we just leave them alone, they will leave us alone. But I'm like, look, here is an instance of when they attacked you and you left them alone. And, and you were not even involved. You had nothing to do with them, yet they attacked you. But of course, someone like Dave Smith is not going to consider any of this. Or even if you point it out to him, he's going to come up with an analogy or something like that. That is that's what they do. To speak like what is it called? To speak like apostate prophet. All right, guys. So yeah, please smash the like button. Subscribe if you're not yet subscribed. Smash that like button. Destroy it, okay? Just keep liking and liking and liking. And also, I want to see your comments. I want to see what everyone has been saying. Now that I'm pausing, is a great opportunity for you to, share your comments with me. Jed said Dave is sucking out, I guess he's talking about CO2 out of the room. This person said Dave Smith just talks to Islamists. I don't know what that is. Okay, Hostran said a lot of people are saying, a lot of people are always saying it's the same thing that Tucker Carlson does. I'm hearing, my source tell me, a lot of people are saying, I have based on, on good authority, it has come to my attention that, So, anyways, please, guys, also send me super chats, okay? I want to receive as many as possible today. Send the super chats. I really appreciate it. That's why I came live. That's why I'm doing this live. If I don't see super chats, I feel like I failed. I'm a failure. So make me feel like a success by sending me super chats. But once again, please smash the like button. Okay, smash that like button. If you're not If you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Please, 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 please subscribe. And let everyone out there know that we are live and we are ready to rumble. And yeah. And take this stream to the next level. Robin Yahood said the Robin Yahood. I like that. The Tripoli attack and invade Europe and north of and the north of Africa first. Yes, they did. Yes, you've been calling Dave Smith soy Smith. Okay, that's very offensive. That's very offensive. And such statement cannot be tolerated on this channel. But if you send it via super chat, I will read it and I would love to. I don't think he's a sick person. Okay, I think it is too far to say he's a sick person. I just think he's not that smart. Like, people exaggerate the smartness of Dave Smith, and I think he's not that smart. He's not that brilliant. He, for sure, for the most part, doesn't even know what he's talking about. So yeah, that's what I think. So yeah. Somebody says something about a lot of people are saying it's the same thing Trump does, where he's like, "Oh, I hear a lot of people are saying that I'm amazing." People call it. I hear people are calling it one of the best this or one of the best that, and I'm like, oh, yeah, really. That's how you know that nobody is saying it. Anyway, so that being said, let's move on to this part of the stream. And please, guys, remember to send me money. Let me say it again. Remember to send me money. Make me wealthier than Candace Owens, and I will love you for life. Maybe I'll start my own conspiracy channel so that people can send me money. I think I have too much integrity for that stuff, but who knows? We'll see. All right, moving on to I think the subject you're going to debate now is did Israel influence the Iraq war? I think this is one of the claims that Dave Smith is notorious for making. This claim that Israel is responsible for the war in Iraq. So let's see how that conversation went, and we'll react to it.
Can you point to any time? So it's not.
No, I'm not. Yeah, okay, but I'm not suggesting that that no regional powers will exert influence over their realm of their sphere of.
I think they are yet to start the conversation.
I don't see him as being a threat to dominate Europe anytime soon. The rest of Europe is all against him and much wealthier and much stronger than him. China is more
but you
of a
implicitly,
power.
even in that argument, you concede implicitly that if they were less strong, for instance, if they didn't have all the backing of the United States, that he could expand. And that would be the natural tendency throughout all of human history.
I'm not conceding that that's necessarily the natural tendency, but sure, if Ukraine was weaker, he would be able to have defeated the country quicker. I'll certainly grant that.
It's not the natural tendency. So you don't agree with the Mearsheimer guys that believe great powers have a default tendency to expand up to the limit of the resistance?
Robin Yahood said he wants to collaborate with me. He would love to work with me in the future. If you do, the people don't know this, but I'm very, very easy to access. I respond to emails. Maybe I'm one of the few. YouTube people who respond to emails. People send me emails and I respond. Like, I actually respond. You can even see it in the comments. Like, people comment and I respond to their comments. Like every love you see as a content creator, the creator of the content liking your comment that comes from me. I'm the one. I read it. I read your comment and I liked it. I actually did read it. You understand? So yeah, if you want to, you can say, like, my email is in the what is it called? The channel description. You can see my email there. Like, if you go to my channel page and you check you click about, you see in the links that I attached to my channel and in the what to know about the channel and all whatnot. You can see my details and how to contact me there. My email is there. You can send me an email, and I'll respond. I'll respond. Because I always respond to emails. Happy Max, and I see a dance poll in Frank's future. Anything for the money, I guess. You see, now I have people putting their money where my mouth is. This is that's what I like to see. You see, like Olajide Adeoye. This is somebody, whenever she's in the live stream, I'm like, you see, finally, the people that I make the stream for have finally arrived. Okay, thank you, Olajide. I am so happy to see you in the live chat, and I'm happy to see your super chat. I really appreciate it. Good afternoon to you too, but over here it is morning, right? Are we there yet? Yes, it is morning. This is 12. This is 12:13 over here. So good morning. Good morning to you. What a wonderful way the world works. So yep.
Against them.
Well, listen, certainly I think every organization has a desire to expand. I mean, this is true in general of businesses, of countries. So they're always trying to expand, not necessarily territorially. And I do think that a country like China, who is kind of known for playing the long game, even in their kind of crazy centrally controlled method. No, I don't think that they're watching America going bankrupt, fighting all of these wars and saying, oh, we got to get in on all that action. I think that, so essentially, yeah, I would probably agree with much of what John Mearsheimer says in the sense that it is the way of the world that great powers will have their realm of influence. I do think that's true. But looking at the world right now, I mean, it's just, I find this to be kind of
I find it really interesting what Dave Smith is saying here. It's Dave Smith throughout this interview does this where he concedes a point and yet doesn't concede the point. It's kind of, oh, I agree with you, and then the next thing he says is kind of, did you even understand what you agreed with? You know, it's kind of one of that frustration that I have with listening to this guy speak. By these guys, I mean both Dave Smith and Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. It's like, do you people have an understanding problem? Like, I am tempted to think that. Like, is the problem that you people have an inability to understand? You know, you talk about if America does not assert itself globally, I think that's kind of the conversation they're having. If America does not assert itself globally, other global powers are going to take over, and it might be to the detriment of America's international interest. This America first exclusionary isolationist position ignores the fact of how the word globalization and the fact that the world is now a global village for the most, in a way. Of course, there is still somebody in a region can still in that region like care so much about his own region and not really be bothered for the most part by what is happening in other parts of the world. But for example, let's take for example, during the beginning of the war in Ukraine, I as a Nigerian was affected economically. And I have no stake in Ukraine, nothing. But somehow, because of what is going on in Ukraine, because we live in a world that has now become so very connected, not intercontinental, but very interconnected, because that is the state of things right now. It is you can just not, at this point, with the way the world is right now, you cannot just, as a nation, just say, you know what, we are going to pull ourselves out and not care about what is happening in the rest of the world. You think America is the only one playing the empire game? China is doing the same thing. China is in Africa right now. Read about it. Google it. Google is free. I want to acknowledge the super chat from Jay. Thank you so much. He said, don't spend the $2 all in one place. Praise our King Jesus Christ. I don't know what you're trying to say, but thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
A silly thing where we become the world empire, we bully the entire world, and then we sit there being worried that someone else is going to start doing this, whereas China has adversaries all
before I think every great empire knows this. Like, that is why every great empire tries to assert dominance on every other neighboring like region. It's kind of like how great empires work. It's only in modern times that people believe that you can be a great known empire in the known world and not want to assert your dominance. There's always a battle of empires. That's how the world goes, Dave. You're making it look like, oh, the US have been dominating for such a long time and now they are worried what will happen if they don't dominate anymore. And I'm like, before the US was dominating, there was the British, the largest empire. Do you remember that? Like the British Empire and how great and wide and vast it was. Before that, there were other empires. There was the Islamic Empire. And the Islamic Empire is also trying to do the same thing. Like, even if the US had never intervened in any way, shape, or form. And the West has like, let's keep to ourselves. It will not stop the Muslims from aggressively trying to advance like they've been doing enough. Do you know that one of the reasons why the Portuguese, which were the first to come to the shore, the first Western group or the first Westerners, the first group of Westerners to come to the shores of West Africa, we are Portuguese missionaries. That's missionaries from Portugal. And the reason why they came was not to trade. It was to spread Christianity. And the reason why they wanted to spread Christianity in West Africa, even though that kind of got pushed to the side and everybody was just more interested in the trade. But the reason why they came was that they were aware, or they had this understanding that Islam was trying to like advance and take over the whole of the continent. And they were like, let us come to West Africa and stop them in West Africa. That was the original intention for the first British or European contact with West Africa and other parts of Southern Africa. That was kind of like their motivation before all of that got pushed to the side, and then everybody was focused on trade and slavery and exploiting the African continent, essentially. But the first thing that brought them here was to stop the advancement of Islam. And they understood that you cannot just sit idle by and just allow an empire that's like Islam to just advance. They understood that you cannot just do that. But for Dave, he's like, no. We can all ignore that and allow that to happen. We can allow the world to be run in this particular way. I mean, imagine that Islamic terrorists imagine that the whole world is under an empire or is controlled by an empire that is the head of that empire is Xi Jinping, or the head of that empire is leave Xi Jinping. People can kind of, okay, let's understand China, but let's say the head of that empire is Kim Jong-un or Putin or the Taliban or something less crazy, okay, but still crazy like the Taliban. And that's what the United States have to trade with and have to do business with. People who are engaged in like human rights abuses, people who don't care about women, don't care about the rights of minorities. You know, a nation like America will have to find itself constantly having to do business with this kind of like an empire that is run by this kind of people on a very large scale, and that is your only option of trade. There's no other way to, like, there's no other option for you than that. It's because we are isolationists and we don't care about what is happening in this place. Imagine that you just allow the world to just go to, just let whatever should happen to the rest of the world. We don't care. Really. In a world that has become this global and this international, you think that is possible? You think that is okay? And you talk about morality and you think that is moral? And here's the funny thing, is that whether he knows it or not, these powers are not just going to be okay with conquering Europe and Africa and Asia. They also would set their eyes on the next prize. And when they do, who are you going to who are you going to build alliance with? Who? You are alone. You know, to quote the Solomon, the writer of Ecclesiastes, he said, "Woe to him that is alone." You know, and real woe, it is an unfortunate situation to find yourself alone.
Around it, China has to contend with Japan and South Korea. It's not so obvious that they just take over the world. And no, I'm a George Washingtonian on this. I think that America, we struggle enough with just doing liberty right here. That should be our focus. And no, I don't think, like, I think you can trade with the world and be friends with the world. And yes, it will suck to be a little country next to a bigger, much stronger country. That's already true. That's true with America. We're more guilty of making it suck for little countries than any of them are. So,
Dave Smith, as somebody who is not an American, let me tell you, I would rather that America, despite how hated they are and how sometimes they get things wrong, I'd rather that America be a world power and be that great empire than they don't. Okay, even the many people who don't like America they know this to be true. Like take Kuwait, for example. And those in Kuwait would agree with me here. But take Kuwait, for example. If you ask people in Kuwait, like, if you ask them, oh, do you like America? They'll be like, oh, America this, America that. But privately, they'll be like, yeah, we are grateful for America. Oh, thank God for America. We like America. They will tell you that we like the presence of America here. As opposed to what? As opposed to Saddam Hussein? So look, if it's good that good people, and it's not, he's like, we can't even, we are still trying, we don't get liberty right over here. We don't get liberty right. We are not saying the America should go out and try to establish liberty everywhere else, but you kind of have to, have your tentacles all over the place. And look, I am grateful that America does. I am very grateful. In fact, in my nation, I want America's tentacles to come more and more. I would rather, there was this tweet that I saw today. I think it was today I saw the tweet. Somebody was saying that the attention that people, U.S. senators like Ted Cruz and the likes, are paying to the persecution of Christians in Nigeria, that the reason why they are doing all of that is because they want to invade and they want to take over the country and they want to exploit us for our natural resources and blah, 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 blah. And somebody responded to that tweet by saying, I would rather the U.S. do that than they don't, and Christians keep dying in the north. I would rather the U.S. do that than they don't, and we continue to endure this very irresponsible, aloof, incompetent government, corrupt government that we have now. There are many Nigerians that would tell you that they would prefer how things were under British rule in Nigeria. It wasn't great. It wasn't perfect. Look, if we can do an entire live stream of me just criticizing how the British ruled this nation, and I can say many of our problems started from there, but they were way better. When the British Empire was in charge, they were way better at dealing with, despite the fact that they didn't even understand the nation so well, and they were still trying to understand the people, and sometimes their understanding was so warped in this Western mentality and Western interpretation of things that it did not really, it was preventing them from understanding the locals in Nigeria. But even with that, I would rather them than what we have now, and that is not a sentiment that I alone hold. So this idea of, oh, America is kind of the mindset you have from this isolationist in America. It's kind of every time America is involved in somewhere, it is bad. What about Liberia? When America involved themselves in Liberia, didn't it result in something good? Didn't it end the massacre over there? It led to regime change, and the Liberians want to thank the United States for that. So there are many instances of America interfering and spreading its tentacles that has been productive and better for the people that get to live in those regions. So all this America does not do it well. There's just this. I think it's common among Americans. Like, oh, anytime America involves itself in any nation, it's just disaster. It's not true. It's not always the case that whenever the West involves itself in other parts of the world, it's just a disaster. It's not true.
I don't find any of this stuff compelling.
Okay, let's move on because there are other topics I want to get to. One of your big arguments, and you've made this on Rogan and elsewhere, is that Israel got us into the Iraq war, or more specifically, pro-Israeli interests were a key factor, a key influence that pushed America into the war in Iraq. So I want to give you the floor to make your case here.
Yeah, well, I mean, if for John Mearsheimer, you were just mentioning him, so I just was at the top of my mind. But
this is the part in the this is the part in the debate where it didn't go well. Like he obviously did not go well for Dave Smith. Like it was visible that he wasn't doing well. This is the part in that it was really visible that Dave Smith wasn't doing well, that he was struggling in this part of the debate. Like he was struggling. I think this debate, this part, especially this segment, from here moving forward anyways, but this segment especially of the debate was where I was like, this guy is not. There's this thing that I people say it was I think it applies to Dave Smith more than any person else. When I saw this part of the debate, I was like, this person is not serious. You're not having a conversation with a serious person. So people, being serious is not just, like looking mean and you're looking. No, it's like the kind of argument that you're putting forth is like, are you serious? Like, are you for real? So for me, I was like, this person is not serious. There is no way this guy is serious.
He wrote a book called The Israel Lobby where he really details this.
By the way, the author he just quoted is somebody who has been like this author, and then I think one other, what's his name? What's the name of this other person? These are like the two sources that Dave Smith just keeps going to, like, read this person's book. And some of these people who he's quoting are people who have made predictions and said certain things that over time has been proven to be false or, kind of, what's the word now? Incomplete in their presentation of facts. Like, these people lie essentially by omission. But besides all the books that he keeps pointing to, Dave Smith's criticism of Douglas Murray was that he kept appealing to authority, essentially telling him about how this person has said this, how this has been debunked. And he said it on, let's look at that clip again, because that's the clip that we played at the beginning of this debate. And it's important that we remember it, moving forward. It's very important that we remember it.
Once you actually get down to it, once you remove all this, like, you're an expert, you're not an expert, you've never been, what are you watering, you've got no actual argument here.
Everyone that is in the room said.
So he's saying when you remove every, do you have this appeal to experts, essentially? When you remove the appeal to experts and the personal experience, the people who are attacking him, like Douglas Murray, doesn't have any argument, right? That was his claim.
Is that basically what the Israelis did? And Sharon is the leader of the party and leader of the country. Tells Bush, this Iraq idea is stupid. It's not going to work. Democracy doesn't work in the Middle East anyway. Iran is the threat. You should be focused on them. Bush tells them to F off. We're going into Iraq. And then Sharon says, okay, well, we didn't convince them. We might as well support our biggest allies because we never want to be on the wrong side of America. That's actually what happened. And then once a decision is made, after that point, Netanyahu testifies to Congress saying, we love the war in Iraq, testifies as a citizen, not as a leader of the party. And everyone in the room corroborates this story.
Okay. I just say I highly recommend people read Mearsheimer's book, The Israel Lobby.
That is his argument. That's all his argument. But you've not responded. Dave, in your own words, you've not responded to the argument. All you have done is plug a book.
The guy, this world-renowned scholar, wrote a book.
Who cares? I don't care. Dave, I don't care if he's a world-renowned elite. I don't care. You read the book, right? Okay? I mean, this is not good. Dave, let me, this is not good. This is not good way to plug a book. Okay? If I am the writer of that book, I would also not want you to plug my book after you've done a terrible job of defending my book. Like, imagine that you come for a debate, right? And what you use to prepare for the debate is a book that I wrote. And then in the debate, you did so poorly. And you, in the midst of you flopping in the debate, you decide to plug in my book. I would rather you don't mention my book, because if that was what you used to prepare for this debate, and that is what you use as to prepare for your position on this issue, I don't think appealing to that is kind of like a good thing. Like, you did not, I don't care what that book says. Like, you who read it, tell us what he said. Tell us what that book is saying. Use whatever you've learned from that book to defend yourself and defend your position. If you cannot do that, don't plug the book. It doesn't help. It doesn't help the sales of that book for you to plug it. And you know this, Dave, that even your audience are not like people who read. And you know that nobody is going to read the book. They're going to listen to you at the end of the day. So don't appeal to something else. Don't appeal to go and read this person's book. Tell us what the book said. Give us the facts from the book, the footnotes. The book has all the footnotes. Okay, give us what the footnote of the book says.
about the most controversial topic in the world.
You don't actually have it. You don't have an original thought that's actually yours.
I'd highly recommend people
Exactly, Dave. Dave, these are not original thoughts that are actually yours. These are recycled. Okay? In your own words, by your very own standards, Dave. Okay? By your very own standard. This is you recycling someone else's thoughts. You have no original thought of your own. So you have to just appeal to the book because you have nothing, Dave. You have nothing.
go read the book. It's all backed up in there. There's tons of evidence on it.
That doesn't do anything for me.
Yes, Dave, it doesn't do anything for any of us.
Then you got to have an actual argument.
Yes, Dave, you got to have an actual evidence. Dave, plugging a book is not evidence. Plugging a book is not an argument. Read this book. Imagine I'm having a debate with you. You're like, read this book. That's not an argument, Dave. Dave, read this book is not an argument.
Otherwise, you're not going to persuade me. And I think for most of the
actual
viewers.
knowledge, too.
Yeah, Dave, you're not going. Yeah, I talk about actual knowledge. In the words of your very good friend Tucker Carlson, you have none, Dave, because you keep referring to this book and telling us to read it. Dave, you have no actual thought of your own, Dave.
Is that right? So then,
Well,
how does that
Mearsheimer
amount to
really is
the whole
my source
Oh, Jesus Christ, another plugging one book. Dave, come on, Dave.
on this.
And I was like, yeah, but what's the response?
Yeah, Dave, what is the response, Dave? Dave, what's the response besides read this book? What is the response, Dave?
Like, what's the response to my point?
Oh, Tucker, thank you for that laugh. Thank you for that laugh, Tucker. For the first time, your laugh did not sound annoying to me. Okay? That's a very fitting laughter. Keep laughing because the very person you should be laughing at is Dave. Dave, what is the response?
Right. Like, I made a point. You made nothing.
And he testified after the Iraq war decision had already been finalized by the White House. What does it matter what he said after the decision was made, Dave?
Because he's talking to Congress and trying to persuade them to support it. I don't know, man. I mean, like, it does seem like you're bending over backward to cover for a foreign country. It's just a little.
Dave, now you're throwing accusations, Dave. Dave, throwing accusation is not an argument. And it's proof that, according to you, which we're about to hear, it is proof that you've lost when you start throwing accusations and insults, essentially. Oh, you are bending over backwards to cover for Israel. Dave, that's not an argument.
A bit strange.
I think that if you're gonna smear me, keep calling me this. Okay, fine. What did I get wrong?
Yeah, Dave. What did Coleman get wrong in his bending over backwards for Israel? What did he get wrong? And of course, he did so poorly in this session of the debate. It was really glorious to witness. Like, really glorious to witness.
Pretty, like, extensively with all the footnotes and citations that you need.
I've read it.
Yeah.
I find it totally unconvincing, but
Well,
Go
I mean, I don't even know how do you find it?
Dave, can you imagine? You said, go and read the book. And somebody tells you, I've read it and it's not convincing. And then your question is, how do you find it not convincing? Dave, tell us what is in that book that is very convincing. Give me one argument from the book, Dave, that is very convincing. I think we should, this is supposed to be a form of argument now. Oh, go and read this book. Have you read this book? Oh, you've not read this book. Then what are you talking about? I think that book is very extensive. Argument done. One. Debunked.
Unconvincing. I mean, obviously,
I'll tell you. Well,
Okay.
I wanted to give you. Okay, so
Sure.
I'll tell you
Well,
why
I'll lay out the case if you want first, but sure.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if we're talking about Mearsheimer, let's talk about that, and then you can lay out whatever other
Sure.
elements of the case you think are compelling. So the idea that the domestic Israel lobby is big enough or powerful enough to get America to fight an entire war that we would not otherwise have fought is to me ridiculous. And now I'll give you a few touch points.
Dave, as you are listening to this, Dave, and as you are listening to this, my audience, this is how somebody makes an argument. Okay? Coleman is about to demonstrate to Dave and to the rest of us how arguments are made. And watch, this is a masterclass, a very beautiful masterclass. It's not in saying, go and read this book, go and read that book. This person said, this person did not say. You give your own original thought. And here is Coleman about to give us his original thought, which is very compelling.
During the entire George W. Bush administration, the Israel lobby spent $17 million lobbying Congress. Now, that might sound like a lot to me or you. It is absolute chump change on the scale of domestic lobbying. To put it in perspective, the tobacco lobby spent $200 million, so more than 10 times that amount over the same time period. And they couldn't even stop Congress from passing a federal tax hike on cigarettes in 2009. Now, during the Obama...
Think about that, guys. The tobacco lobby spent $300 million, if I got that correct. Let me hear him again. I just want to get all of this correct.
10 times that amount over the same time period.
Okay, so 10 times that amount. So I don't know. Did he mention the amount? Let me get it. Let me hear him very well.
The Israel lobby spent $17 million.
So the Israel lobby spent $17 million
lobbying Congress.
during the Bush administration. $17 million. Okay?
Now, that might sound like a lot to me or you. It is absolute chump change on the scale of domestic lobbying. To put it in perspective, the tobacco lobby spent $200 million, so more than 10...
The tobacco company in America spent $200 million. The Israel lobby, that is the greatest lobby that has serious influence in America, spent $17 million during the Bush administration, and the tobacco lobby spent $200 million.
Times that amount over the same time period. And they couldn't even stop Congress from passing a federal tax hike on cigarettes in 2009.
And they could not stop the... So wait, the tobacco company or the tobacco industry spent $200 million in lobbying the U.S. government, lobbying Congress, and yet they could not stop Congress from passing a law that led to hike in taxation of tobacco products, essentially. So $200 million was not effective to control Congress. Okay? This is what the people who say Israel controls America want you to believe. They want you to believe that the tobacco industry with $200 million could not control could not control Congress, could not get Congress to dance to their tune, could not get Congress to do what they want. But Israel, with $17 million, was able to get the U.S. into a war with Iraq that resulted in spending billions. Is that believable? Like, do you find it believable? Do you find it believable that with 17 million, Israel could get more done than the tobacco industry with 200 million? Is it possible?
During the Obama era, the Israel lobby spent $30 million, and they were outspent by the dentists. The dentist lobby spent $32 million. This is all according to Open.
So during Obama administration, the Israel lobby spent $30 million, and the dentist industry spent $32 million.
Secrets.org, which is usually the standard source people go to for such figures. This is, again, not to repeat my favorite phrase, but like a firefly to the sun when compared to the $2 billion, for instance, that Wall Street spent lobbying Congress, and they couldn't even...
Wall Street spends $2 billion. $2 billion. $2 billion. And the Israel lobby spends $30 million.
And prevent Dodd-Frank from being passed. So the spent lobbying Congress, and they couldn't even prevent Dodd-Frank from being passed. And
yet they could not prevent a legislation that was detrimental to them. The point is, if somebody could spend that billions like that, and yet they were not able to control Congress, yet you want us to believe that somebody who spent so much less was able to control Congress, and why we are supposed to believe that is because somebody wrote a book about it.
The idea that the domestic Israel lobby could get us to fight an entire war that we wouldn't otherwise have fought at the same price as the dentists are paying Congress is too much for me.
Right. Oh, this is a topic for another show, but the bankers love Dodd-Frank, and I think they were quite happy with that bill being. But that's a topic for another show.
They tried to prevent it from being passed, and only once they failed did they try to mold it as a plan B to their own image. So
yeah, I mean, look,
you can't start
again,
don't start the movie in the middle. They failed with $2 billion to prevent it being passed.
I think you're the one who's missing the firefly for the sun, or whatever your analogy was in that case with the big banks.
No, God. You see what I'm saying? You see, this is the part where you begin to question if these people have basic comprehension skill problem. Like, is it that your inability to understand? How is he the one missing the point? Why is he the one missing the analogy? The Wall Street wanted this bill not to be passed. It was passed, and later after it was passed, they were like, oh, well, maybe it is to our advantage at the end of the day. Maybe we can take advantage of this. But they didn't want it passed. With $2 billion in lobbying for it not to be passed. $2 billion. They could not get Congress to do their bidding with $2 billion. But Israel is supposed to do that, was able to achieve that with $30 million. And this is being brought up to you, and this is your response. Maybe there is more. So let's listen to Dave Smith. Tell us more.
It's like, look, man, you could talk about these people who like get, contribute tons of money to candidates in Washington, D.C., and then point out the one area where they didn't get the policy that they wanted, or they didn't get their A plan and only got their B plan. Okay.
Dave. So Dave is saying, well, I don't even understand the point at this point. Like, what is your point, Dave? Oh, this is just the one time they didn't get what they wanted. I'm a lobby group, and I spend millions of dollars lobbying you. And something as small as this, I couldn't get you to do. But yet somebody is supposed to believe that I'm strong. Imagine, Dave, he's about to bring, let him bring up his analogy, because he's going to bring it up. So let's.
But then if you zoom out, you can look at how the whole system is rigged in their favor. They get free money and then lend it out to the American people. I think it seems to be working out pretty good for them rigging this system. But onto the Israel lobby thing. I mean, look, again, this isn't refuting any of what Mearsheimer said. Mearsheimer simply claimed that because you're talking about AIPAC, and he's talking about the entire lobby.
No. Those numbers I gave were the entire pro-Israel lobby, of which AIPAC is something like half.
Dave Smith, you didn't know that. You didn't even know how much Israel is spending, like the Israeli lobby as a whole. You don't even know how much they've spent in the past. You don't even know the sum total of what they've spent in the past. That is some debate blunder. Very astronomical debate blunder, if I've ever seen one. You are refuting a claim that you know nothing about, essentially. Dave, come on.
Okay, fine. But you're talking AIPAC and the American Enterprise Institute and the Washington.
I'm talking
Institute
about
for
every organization that's listed under the pro-Israel lobby on Open Secrets.
But what he's talking about for most of the book, which is really what I'm always hammering down. I mean, look, there's no question. Like AIPAC supported the war, and some of these other, or the American Enterprise Institute, they all supported the war, and they threw money toward that, and they lobbied for it. But this was a neoconservative war. I mean, the neoconservative. Like,
okay, so if it was a neoconservative war, then it is not an Israel-influenced war. If the neoconservatives in America were the ones who wanted this war, let's say that is the case. The neocons, right? They're the ones who wanted the war, and they're the one who pushed for it. The neocons is not a synonym for Israel, is it? Please, somebody tell me, is there something I'm missing? Are the neocons like, synonymous? What is the synonym for Israel? Neocons? If the neocons want something, does that mean that Israel wants it? Or that is Israeli? A neocon's influence on American politics is synonymous to Israel's influence in American politics. Is that how it works, Dave? Like, saying that does not mean that Israel is the one influencing America's policy. It only means that Americans, who are the neocons, are the ones responsible for the war in Iraq, not Israel. But maybe we'll see a way how he will rope Israel into the whole thing.
I don't think there's any chance. Look, the Iraq War was highly debated. It was contested. It was contested in Congress. There were people who were against it. There were uniformed military people who were against it. There were people at the State Department who were for it. And the neocons were the ones who really pushed it through. And look, I mean, Coleman, you look at who the neocons were, okay? In their own words, they have deep loyalty to Israel. Every last one of them has said in their own words that they have a deep commitment toward Israel. They're right.
Okay, the neocons in America have a deep loyalty for Israel and they support Israel. Let's say all of that is true. They are huge supporters of Israel and they love Israel. Okay. Let me give you an analogy. Let me give you one. Okay? So let's say there is a married man. Okay? This married man loves to have sex with prostitutes. Okay? He spends all his money on prostitutes. He doesn't treat his wife well, doesn't take care of his family because of his love for prostitutes. And then you say the reason why this man is doing this is because the prostitutes are influencing him. No. He's the one choosing to do this. He could tomorrow stop loving the prostitutes and decide to commit to his family. And he will. And he can. So he has this deep loyalty for prostitutes. And then because of that, he's just running his family to the ground and not caring about his children. And you're like, oh, it is the prostitute's fault. Really? It is the prostitute's fault? Or not the man's fault for loving prostitutes? Did the prostitutes go into his house and steal his children's school fees? Did the prostitutes somehow do something to his mind to make him love them so much? Or did he just decide to do that on his own because he has a love for prostitutes problem? That's kind of how it is. And I'm not saying that is the case, but I'm saying if what Dave is saying is true, it does not mean Israel dragged America into the war in Iraq. It means neocons who love Israel dragged America. It is not the same thing. It is not. Now, I'm not saying he's right. I'm just saying if what he's saying is indeed the case, which it is not, and we are going to see as the conversation goes forward how it is not the case. But let's say it is the case. It doesn't mean any of the things. It doesn't make the claim true. Okay, let's say America does certain things because there are people in America who have this strong love for France. Let's say there are the Americans who have this strong love and loyalty towards France. They just love France. They feel this deep spiritual connection to France. They feel this bond with France and they would love to see France prosper. Somehow, France is on the top of their agenda. And because of this love for France, they push a particular French, policy that is more favorable to the French than it is to the Americans. And then somebody say, the reason why they do that is because the French influenced them. The French influenced them, or their love for the French influenced them. Your love for something influencing you is not the same thing as that thing influencing you. It doesn't mean the French came to you and said, oh, you have to do this. And if anybody has been in a love relationship or a loyalty relationship, so whatever, let's say a love relationship with anything or any person, sometimes the thing people do in the name of love for that thing is something that even that thing itself will be like, no, don't do it. So that in itself does not, because these people have a strong love for Israel, or they feel this strong bond towards Israel, or they feel like they have this loyalty towards Israel, does not mean Israel pushed them to do it. They still have agency, and they can still choose to do whatever they want to do. And these people are in serious position of power. So for you to say Israel influenced and dragged, to use the word dragging America into the war means that there is this undue influence. That is the point. That's the point. There is an undue influence that Israel has in America. To prove undue influence cannot just be proved on the statement of, oh, but these people have this strong love for this nation. That is not undue influence. Dave?
writing all of their policy papers through the 1990s on how we have to overthrow the government in Iraq as part of this clean break strategy on behalf of Israel. And then they are all of George W. Bush's men. Literally, once the towers come down, George W. Bush is in the White House. It's a project for a new American century, all down his staff, down from his defense secretary, his vice president, and all of their men. They're at the State Department, the Defense Department. And so it is not going out on a limb to say, yeah, this war doesn't happen without the neoconservatives. And I think John Mearsheimer...
That is not the claim. Even if that's true, but that's not the claim. The claim is not about neoconservatives. Neoconservatives is not synonymous for Israeli influence or undue influence or control, essentially.
Very reasonably.
A man who has loyalty to a prostitute is still in control of his life, of the decisions he makes, of his choices. This is the reason, Dave, why when we are having this conversation on Piers Morgan with Konstantin Kisin, he kept pointing out to you, though it kind of flew over your head, that it was Americans that decided, it was your government that decided, they did it, they could choose not to do it, they could choose not to listen to Israel. They had no reason to listen. If, let's say, Israel was the one saying it to them, let's say, for whatever reason, they could choose, and they chose. They made this choice. The choice is on your government. Your government is responsible for that choice, period. And your government has shown over and over again that they can choose to do something regardless of who is funding them, regardless of how much money lobbyists pump to influence them. Despite how much money whoever and whatever pays to them, they can choose to do the opposite of what those people want. And they've done so many times. So when your government does something, it is your government's choice. They have agency. They chose this. It is nobody else's fault. It is not the fault of... Even if Israeli representatives, you are the one who are like, George Bush, we think you should attack Iraq. We are like, yeah, they have WMDs and we want you to go in there. At the end of the day, George Bush made that call. He chose that. There are many, even in the Trump administration, there are many people in the Trump administration with different agendas and different goals and different things they want to pursue. At the end of the day, every choice that is made is Trump's choice. Trump made the call. It is his call. If there's any person to blame for the war in Iraq, however people want to pronounce the name of the country, if there's anyone to blame for it, blame George W. Bush. Blame his administration. Blame them. Blame Congress. Blame those people. Blame those who we are making the decision, who we are making the final call. Blame those people. They are the ones responsible. Not Israel made us do it. That's like blaming the devil. You fell into a pool or you found yourself doing things you're not supposed to do, and then you're like, the devil made me do it. Come on.
Puts them as part of the Israel lobby. All you have to do is read their own words. It's not like I'm putting together some conspiracy. By the way, I love that Mearsheimer points out in that book, because I do think there's a real interesting point to make, that he's not saying it was a Jewish war. Like, the Jewish people in America actually opposed the war in Iraq much more so than just about any other group. I think the polling data was they were way out ahead against the war in Iraq. I forget the exact numbers.
Yes, that's
but yeah, there's no question that, call it whatever you want to. I mean, like, they would basically through the 90s self-identify as the American version of the Likudnik party, but whatever you want to call it, these group of people who have, in their own words, admitted they have like profound loyalty and connection to Israel, pushed for this war, and they had written in their own words that a huge part of it was because this was the strategy to help Israel.
None of this is true, Dave. Okay, so let's look
yes, it is. It's all true.
Let's look at their own words. Project for a New American Century is founded in 1998. If you go to their archive online, you can find the earliest thing written about Iraq by a member. The earliest thing is written by John Bolton, 1997. Here's the first sentence of the earliest thing written on the PNAC archive. You might think the United Nations would want to punish Saddam Hussein for disrupting and nearly killing the UN's own efforts to eliminate Iraq's weapons of mass destruction. Instead, the UN Security Council effectively rewarded him. The next year, when the PNAC is actually founded, as you know, they write a letter to Bill Clinton. Now, this is the first time that PNAC, the neocons, call for the ouster of Saddam Hussein, right, publicly.
No, this is the first time the Project for a New American Century called for him. It's not the first time the neocons have publicly called for him. Right, but it's not. No, you said the neocons. It's not the first time the neocons had called for it publicly.
Correct. We'll get to that. Apologies. So the first time PNAC calls for the ouster of Saddam Hussein in 98, they write a letter to Bill Clinton. The entire letter is about the fact that Saddam has WMDs or is pursuing WMD, and we can't let it happen. And this is how the letter ends. We urge you to act decisively. If you act now to end the threat of weapons of mass destruction against the U.S. or its allies, you will be acting in the most fundamental national security interests of the country. If we accept blah, 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 blah. Okay. So Israel is mentioned once in that letter, and it's grouped in with all of our other allies in the region. It's like they say, also, this will be good for Israel and Jordan and our other allies in the region. So PNAC, this idea that the Project for a New American Century, that you and I both agree is a good bellwether for the neocons, was not using the WMD argument. It was their main argument. It was almost their only argument long before Iraq. Now let's get to this clean break.
No, but this is just, wait, hold on, but Coleman, this is just not right. I mean, you've read a clean break, a new strategy for securing the realm and coping with crumbling states, I assume.
That wasn't about U.S. foreign policy. That was a recommendation for Israeli foreign policy.
Yes, okay, but you're saying they talk openly about wanting to overthrow Saddam Hussein for the clean break strategy. Like, so, okay, like, yes, in the letter to Bill Clinton, they didn't say that, but they had written openly about this.
No,
it's the entire strategy that they laid out. And we also have a 4-star general who's on record saying that he saw these plans, that they were going to go overthrow all of these governments.
Let's deal with one at a time. The clean break memo.
Sure.
The clean break memo written by Richard.
Before they get to the clean break memo, let's unpack everything that has been said. A lot has been said, but before they get to the clean break memo and all whatnot, the argument here, or the argument that Coleman is trying to present here as a counter to everything that Dave is saying. But one thing, Dave, is I think is Dave's case is neither here nor there. And I don't think he even understands it. Dave's case is neither here nor there. Just because a group of people or people, a particular group, a particular organization have affinity towards Israel. Like I've said earlier, just because they have this affinity towards Israel and they love the nation and they think they claim to have a strong connection towards the nation, and whatever it is that they talk about does not mean the nation is influencing them. It is not, you cannot go from that to say, oh, well, this proves that they are controlling America. This proves that this love interest is the controller of America, or is the one that dragged America to war with Iraq. But also is the fact that these people have always suspected or thought, and have always stated that weapon of mass destruction is the reason why Iraq should be invaded. Weapons of mass destruction have always been the argument, not we love Israel. Their argument has always been weapon of mass destruction. What other argument does Dave Smith presents to show that the reason why they did this is on the behest of Israel? Because that's essentially the only way to show that Israel drove America to a war with that Israel was responsible, and the ones that did, and the country or the Israeli government is the entity that drove America or dragged America into a war with Iraq. The only way to demonstrate that is one. This is the best way to demonstrate that. One, Israel wanted it. Two, Israel not just wanted it and wanted it in their heart and minds, but two, that they requested for it, and they requested for it actively, and they lobbied for it. And that lobby is actually the reason why it was done. These are the four things. Now, let's start with the last one. I don't think the lobby is the reason why it was done, because as Coleman has demonstrated, You can see that Israel's power as a lobbyist group or a lobbyist unit in America is not that powerful. There are other powerful lobbyist group, and they are not even able to get Congress to do some of the things that they want Congress to do. They're not really that effective in influencing the government. And the money that they spend is not really that much. That is the first thing. Second, they didn't request for it, as we are going to see. Israel was not like, oh, let's go after Iraq. The Israeli government was opposed to a war with Iraq and wanted a war with Iran. They didn't want to go ahead with it. Essentially, they just had to go ahead with it because they didn't want to offend the US, which they consider to be their greatest ally. So if they did not request for it, they didn't want it, then how is it that they, and then some group, imagine I didn't request for something. I didn't want something. I didn't ask for something to be done. And then somebody does it, and that person who is doing it, and that person who orchestrated it happening, claimed to love me. And then you're like, because that person claimed to love me and claimed to be loyal to me, therefore they did that thing because of me. And in fact, you're going to go out, and it's not a stretch as far as you are concerned to state that I was the one who was behind it all. Like, what evidence is there for that? Exactly, Dave. What is your evidence besides this? The neocons have this strong love for Israel and this strong loyalty to Israel. Like, strong love and strong loyalty to somebody does not mean you did that thing because the person wanted it. That is not all the ingredients to prove that we asserted undue influence on you.
Earl Douglas Faith, all these neocons.
David Wormser.
David Wormser. In 1996, it is a recommendation to Israel, to the Likud, to Benjamin Netanyahu, to say, here are some things we think that Israel should prioritize. It is not a recommendation about what American foreign policy should prioritize. That's the first.
Now, look at that. The document that he's claiming shows that Israel is having this, or that there is this plan, or whatever plan. It's not a document that came from Israel to American politicians, but a document that came from American politicians to Israel. So who is suggesting here? Who is making the suggestion here? And somebody will say, oh, I think it's the Americans that are making the suggestion. But for Dave, somehow it doesn't show that.
Thing to note. The second thing to note is that when that paper advocates overthrowing Saddam, the point of overthrowing Saddam was to replace him with a Hashemite monarch that would be friendly to Israel, like Jordan is friendly
right.
to Israel. That's the whole point. The point of deposing Saddam was not to replace it with a democracy. That is nowhere in the clean break memo. So question for you, if the clean break memo was some kind of blueprint, why didn't we even make an attempt to replace Saddam with a Hashemite monarchy?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Guess what? He's not going to answer it, but just watch him.
That's a good point. I think the whole thing fell apart, right? I mean, like,
but we never even contemplated it. We never.
It was never, when the war in Iraq was advertised, it was not advertised with, we are going to replace Saddam Hussein with another another monarch. It was, we are going to replace Saddam Hussein with a democracy. That is how the war was that is how it was sold. It was never even talked about. If this memo that you are referencing is what was the blueprint, then they were not following the blueprint. Imagine you said that this house was built based on this blueprint, and the blueprint recommended the blueprint is a blueprint for a building with 5 bedrooms, and this house has only 3 bedrooms. And I'm pointing out to you, look, this house have 3 bedrooms, but the blueprints here that you said this house is based on is a design for 5 bedrooms. And you're like, well, they decided to go with 3 bedrooms because if the plan did not work. If the plan did not work, then this was not the plan that we are following. And for it to never have even been contemplated, it's not like, they had this initial plan and then moving forward they changed plan. It's that from the beginning, from the onset of the war being sold, that was how it was sold. It wasn't like, we went into there wanting to replace Saddam Hussein with a monarch, and then when we could not replace him with a monarch, we went for the next best thing, which is a democracy. No, it was sold as we are going to replace Saddam Hussein with a democracy. That was how it was sold. Dave. So this is not the blueprint, essentially. This is not the blueprint. any sensible person can say, oh, yeah, this is not the blueprint. Come on, this blueprint is talking about 5 bedrooms, aka another monarch. But that's not what we got here. What we are hearing about is, just imagine, so-called blueprint. Even before the house is the blueprint that's supposed to be followed to build this house. Even before the house, the first foundation, even before the house was bought, even before the land upon which the house was existing was bought, everybody was talking about a 3-bedroom. And you're like, no, the 5-bedroom blueprint was what they were following. It doesn't connect, Dave. It doesn't connect.
Even floated the idea. So
Well, no, that's not.
how could it be therefore true that the clean break memo is some kind of blueprint?
Well, Chalabi was like Judith Miller's big source on the whole thing, right? I think that a lot of the neocons seem to really believe that that was going to be what happened, and that's not what happened after they invaded the country. But Coleman, I mean, like,
No, that was not what was. Dave, simple question. What was advertised? Was it when the war was being sold? What was advertised, Dave? What was advertised? What was the selling point to the American people for why this war would happen and how this war would take place? Was it we are going to replace Saddam Hussein with another king, with a monarch? Or was it we are going to replace Saddam Hussein with a democracy? How was this war sold? Not they went there with a different and they thought it was going to end up. No. How was it sold? What were they saying from the beginning? The problem with, sorry, I didn't want to yell in this live stream, but yeah. The problem that I have with people like Dave is the things they choose, they will ignore and downgrade. Like these people are the people who claim to be noticing stuff. These people are the people who claim to be, we are enlightened, we are noticing things, we are the people who are noticing patterns, and yet they just ignore the obvious. Like they notice everything but the obvious.
you're sitting here saying like, okay, so these people are like, they're writing to Benjamin Netanyahu saying, here's the strategy for a clean break to get away from the peace process so you don't have to give up a Palestinian state and you can keep the status quo going. And so what we think you ought to do for that is overthrow this guy Saddam Hussein. And then you have them advocating for overthrowing Saddam Hussein for years more after that. Then they actually get into power and they do the thing. And we're supposed to pretend like that there's no connection there. I'm not like connecting wild dots. I'm saying like they said this is what they're in.
Dave, you're connecting white dots, and this is why. Let's say I come out and I say, we are going to take this land. And when we do, we are going to build, let me use my bedroom, when we do, we are going to build a 5-bedroom flat. That's what we are going to build. We are going to build a 5-bedroom apartment. When we buy this land, we are going to build a 5-bedroom apartment. That's what we are going to do. And we talked about it, we discussed it, we were like, yeah, that's what we are going to do. We even wrote memos about it and documents about it, and we pass it around, and we make it as a recommendation. Look, if you really want to make the world a better place, let's buy this land and build a 5-bedroom apartment in it. Okay. Then, years later, finally, a government comes along or somebody with money come along and say, okay, you know what? We are buying this land. And then they buy the land, and then they build a 3-bedroom apartment in it. I mean, we said for there to be, they said, according to this memo, this clean break memo that you keep talking about, for peace, for Israel to have a clean break and not have to share land with the Palestinians, what they needed to do was to overthrow Saddam Hussein. That's part 1, overthrow Saddam Hussein. Part 2, replace him with somebody who is favorable to Israel. And then in the execution of this plan, part 1, Saddam Hussein was overthrown, but part 2, there was no monarch. And then you're like, yeah, that was the plan that we are following. And I'm like, maybe they executed part of the plan, but they didn't execute the other half. And from the very beginning, they were not even planning to. So how are they how could this? What is the connection here? Because one part of the plan fits. Therefore, this is the plan. Let's ignore the part of the plan that doesn't fit. This is what we call, Dave, this is what is called cherry picking. This is what you call cherry picking. You are cherry picking to make this case. You want to focus on the part of the plan or the part of reality that fits with the plan, and ignore the part of reality that doesn't fit with the plan. Yes, Saddam Hussein was overthrown, but he was not replaced with a monarch. So this is not the plan. But no, you want to emphasize he was overthrown and ignore a monarch is not in place.
Interest was, this is why they wanted it done, and then they did the thing.
No, no, that's not true. I mean,
It is.
It's not true, because Richard Pearl was not saying what America should do. He was saying what he thought Israel should do. What we ended up doing was not what was in the clean break memo. Your whole argument is that what we ended up doing was what was in this memo. It's not true. We deposed Saddam, and nowhere in the clean break memo does it say make Iraq a democracy. No Israeli.
Yeah, I think he made a good point that when the neocons wrote this to Israel, they were not saying this is what the US should do, but this is what Israel should do. They were recommending a policy, a foreign policy agenda for Israel. They were making a recommendation to Israel, which then tells you that it wasn't Israel that was the orchestrator, but rather the neocons who were making the recommendation to Israel. But that's by the way. Second is that if this was the memo that was being followed, then it wasn't followed the way the memo. I mean, you can say this over and over again, but I think Dave's response is going to remain the same, which is ignore it. Just ignore it and act like that part of the equation is not there. So it's pointless at this point.
Likud member would think you can make Iraq a democracy. They thought that notion was ridiculous. So what we ended up doing had nothing to do with what Richard Pearl...
Exactly, which is very important to note. Nobody in Israel, especially in the Likud party, would think that a democracy is possible in Iraq. Like, they did not even think it was possible in Iraq. So why would Israel go with a plan that they knew will not work? Like they stated will not work. Like any person who has an understanding of Middle East politics and Middle East culture and Middle Eastern society knows that trying to establish a democracy in the Middle East is a pipe dream.
Recommended, and everything to do with what George Bush thought would make sense. And you could be totally critical of that idea,
of all of
but
that.
you cannot argue that what we did the clean break memo. That's just factually incorrect.
No,
and then
sure.
everything else Panak is saying, their entire argument is WMD, WMD,
Coleman,
WMD. You don't find Israel there.
Coleman, this is like if I point to General Wesley Clark saying we're going to overthrow 7 governments in the next 5 years and that decision's being made. And then you say, yeah, dude, but we didn't overthrow. It took us like 15, 20 years to do that. Like, yes, of course. Obviously, George W. Bush and Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld and, Condoleezza Rice or Colin Powell at the time. Obviously, all these guys had influence on this too. And so I'm not claiming that the piece of paper came to life and everything that was on it magically happened after that. It's still a pretty important paper to look at. And this was written by people who were in positions of substantial power when the time came due. And so, yes, you're right. The spreading democracy to Iraq, which it seemed to, at least in George W. Bush.
Dave, you've not explained why that clean break memo is important. You've not explained it at all. You have not. You've not explained. You've really not explained. You keep insisting that it is important. And you're like, it's important because of the people who wrote it. Okay? So? But you've not explained why it is really important, Dave. You've not. Dave?
Bush's estimation be an essential selling point to the war. You're right. That wasn't in the paper. And that got added later. But
that got added later. Added later to what? It's not added later. It's kind of revised paper. If it was revised, then it wasn't the paper. It was something else. It was another paper. It was another agenda. It was something else altogether.
Pretty relevant.
That's kind of half the enchilada. Let's talk about this.
No, it's I don't see. Oh, okay.
Let's talk about this Wesley Clark memo that he never saw. Okay, so 4-star General Wesley Clark.
He never saw it?
Yeah, he says so in the C-SPAN interview. You don't remember this? He's talking about it. He says
that he never saw it?
He says I'm talking to the Joint Chiefs.
Yeah, the person in question really didn't see and said he didn't see the memo. And we are going to play that here so that for the audience to see.
We also have a 4-star
says
that he
Wesley
was that we the what
let me get
Scott,
the Secretary of Defense.
I
just got this down.
Yeah, see, this is the person being referenced here. And here he is saying he never saw the memo.
From upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years. I said, is it classified? He said, yes, sir. I said, well, don't show it to me.
Rumsfeld, who
Yep. He never saw the memo.
Oh, yeah. He says he handed him the paper and he was like, all right, all right. Don't look at that.
He says, do not show this to me. I don't want to be on the hook for seeing classified info.
Yeah, I think it was, you're talking about the interview with Amy Goodman on Democracy Now!, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So the memo that Wesley Clark never saw, okay, it said, according to his hearsay, and it would be dismissed in a court as hearsay, that we're going to overthrow 7 countries in 5 years, is Iraq, then Syria, then Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Iran. So the first thing I want to say about this is that Pentagon memos in the Bush White House were called snowflakes because they came so often and they piled up on your desk. And let me read to you from the Washington Post at the time. Rumsfeld, whose sometimes abrasive approach often alienated other cabinet members, produced 20 to 60 snowflakes, these memos, snowflakes a day, 20 to 60 a day. Regularly poured out his thoughts in writing as the basis for developing policy. And Rumsfeld's aide, Keith Urban, which is a funny name, estimated that he wrote 20,000 memos during his time in the George W. Bush White House. And then we have from National Security Counterterrorism Advisor Richard Clark, who is in the room. He was close with Condoleezza Rice, National Security. He says, from time to time, Condoleezza Rice would show Clark notes sent by the defense secretary, these snowflake memos, all telling her to stay off his turf. The first time she got one of them, she thought, what do I do with this? Says Clark, who adds she was advised to ignore them. Every once in a while, one of these ranting Rumsfeld notes to Condi would come. You can almost hear the eye roll. Like, this dude Rumsfeld is drowning us in his little thoughts and his stupid memos. He sent 20 yesterday. I get 20 emails from someone. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Send me one important one. So then this guy, 4-star General Wesley Clark, comes along, doesn't see the memo, hears about one memo, isn't privy to it because he's not allowed to see it, also isn't privy to the other 20 memos that day, isn't privy to the memos next week that might cancel out the strategy that was laid out. Do you have any evidence that this memo was actually important as opposed to one snowflake in a shifting strategy of 60,000?
Well, I think, okay, so first of all, Wesley Clark is...
Very good question. Let me break it down, break everything down that he has just asked or tried to explain. He's saying that during the Bush administration, these memos, which one of which Dave Smith is always referencing from Rumsfeld, came regularly. They were called snowflakes because of how often they came. That in a day, you could get up to 60 memos from this guy. So there were just many. We don't even know what they were saying. And so many of them were being trashed. And then his question is, these memos were not even taken serious by the administration. And these memos were so many that most of them just got, in fact, if not all of them, were just like, thrown away. So the question is, how are you sure this memo from Rumsfeld that you keep referencing, that the person who keeps talking about it never saw, was important, and that there was no other memo after that memo that kind of canceled that memo? Like, are you sure he did not sell like 50,000 memos and, for the entire administration, and none of them was even taken seriously because he keeps sending memos? So how are you sure this memo is important, essentially? So let's see Dave Smith's response.
Actually clarified a bunch of this more recently, but he did talk about how he had actually seen the plans originally a decade earlier in 1991.
That was some separate Israeli study, he said, right?
Yeah, well, it was a little bit clunky the way he said it. He said it came from Paul Wolfowitz's desk, and that he had brought it to Brent Scowcroft, I think, who had said, "Let's look at that after." He said it was resurrected in an Israeli study.
Really, guy, really, Dave, this is kind of what your entire argument is built on, and yet the way you are even talking about it is making me not want to trust it, and making me feel like this is very irrelevant. Look at the way you are describing this thing. Even you, Dave, look at the way you are describing this thing that's supposed to be the smoking gun.
and it wasn't exactly clear what he was referring to there. But again, we got a 4-star general, right? And he was not saying, like, because this was kind of weird when I remember Douglas Murray kind of taking a similar line with this when I had my conversation with him. But he wasn't saying like, oh, there's a memo or there's just like something like what Wesley Clark is saying, and you're right, it is him saying what he heard from someone else. But he was saying, and a 4-star general felt comfortable enough to like say this on national television, that he went to the Defense Department and was told that the decision had been made, that we were not only going to Iraq. If the way he tells the story is he came in, he found out they had decided they were going to invade Iraq. Then he comes back.
Any sensible person, Dave, even you, I don't know if you're even listening to yourself, but Dave, any sensible person will not take any of that seriously. Like, that is not evidence. Sorry, Dave, that is not evidence. That proves nothing. That's just words. It has no weight. Everything you just said has no weight. The way you describe it, the way it is being said, and you keep mentioning first charge general said it, and he wasn't clear about how he was kind of, there was kind of like a vagueness. The story is kind of mumbo jumbo. We don't even understand the details of how he even went. Even I don't even know how he went. All I know is that something was said about 7 countries being invaded, and I'm going to stick to that. Like, any sensible person will ignore that, except you are going to zero in on that because that's all you have. That's all you have to make your case, Dave. So you're going to just cling on to it. Somebody who was not in the room, somebody who didn't see the memo, somebody whose testimony is essentially hearsay, somebody who is a government official, somebody who at the time he made that statement and at the time he wrote his book was planning to run for presidency. These are the people who will tell you, don't trust the government. Until the government says something that kind of feeds into the theory that they want to run with. All of a sudden, the government is suddenly credible. Dave, what happened to your criticism and your distrust for government organizations and agencies? If the FBI come tomorrow and say something about Israel and say something about that is an official statement, you will disregard it, but you cling on to this 4-star general, okay? This 4-star general who was running for president, and his aim, his entire political shtick at that point was, I'm going to do better with foreign policy. And one of his claims is, oh, look at this thing that happened, that I didn't see, but I had. And I'm not, I didn't, in fact, if I'm giving that evidence, it's going to be hearsay. This is hearsay evidence. And you're like, the only weight you are putting on this hearsay evidence is the person who is saying it. Essentially, because he's a 4-star general, what he's saying is somehow credible because of his title. Somehow.
Couple months later, this is late 2001, and the guy goes, dude, it's so much worse than just Iraq. We're going to topple 7 countries in the next 5 years. Now, he said he goes to show him this, and Wesley Clark's like, I shouldn't really be looking at that document there, and this might be a crime for you to be showing this. But, okay, so what we have is a 4-star general saying he knew of these plans a decade later. The same group of people is now back in power after being kicked out, for the Clinton years. They're now back in power. He's saying the decision's been made that we're going to war with. Hold on one second.
How would he know?
Hold on one second.
He wasn't even allowed to see the memo.
Let me just finish the point, okay? And then you can respond to this. He's saying, you're right, he didn't see the memo. It's just a 4-star general saying that somebody at the Defense Department told him the decision's to be made.
Dave, no amount of time. If you like, repeat the word 4-star general 5,000 times. It doesn't stop it from being hearsay. Hearsay is hearsay, even if it comes from 10-star general, if there's anything like that. Hearsay is hearsay. It doesn't matter who is saying it. No judge in this world is going to listen to hearsay evidence and say, oh, boy, it is coming from a 4-star general, so I'll pay attention to it. Hearsay is hearsay. Somebody told me. It's not you having direct evidence of something. And it's hearsay evidence. And nobody will regard hearsay if you're not an eyewitness of the account. Dave, come on. Like, this is simple stuff that any person can simply understand. This is simple stuff that anybody can simply understand. That something is said by someone he was not in the room, he did not know. And here is what is even interesting, especially the fact that what he's saying contradicts what people in the room we are saying. He was not in the room. He heard from someone. He did not see any memo. Even the memo itself from Rumfeld is something that may not even be significant. I mean, if you put all of this together, Dave, you're going to see that this thing that you keep propping up as very powerful evidence is actually not powerful. It is actually not significant. And it actually should not be taken seriously by any serious person. But because this is all you have, you are clinging to it so tightly. I don't know if tightly is a word, but yeah.
And then in the following years, we didn't overthrow 7 countries in 5 years, but we did overthrow a bunch of the ones on the list or target a bunch of the ones on the list. And so, Coleman, my argument here isn't that, again, I'm not saying that memo came to life.
By the way, guys, if you are enjoying the live stream, please smash the like button, subscribe, do all the YouTube thing. And please send me super chats, okay? I'm feeling a bit like down. For my mental health, having to deal with Dave Smith, please. I know I'm putting you guys through it as well, but, you know, I'm helping you guys through it at the end of the day. So please reward my efforts by sending me super chats and also by going to my Buy Me a Coffee page and giving me money as well. Just put your money where my mouth is. That's kind of the goal, okay? That's kind of like the goal of this live stream, to help you put your money where my mouth is. So please, send in those super chats, send in those, donations or payment to my Buy Me a Coffee. Just go ahead and do all of that, and I'll really, 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 really appreciate it, okay? 100%. But if you cannot do any of that, just smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, keep watching, share it, and I'm telling you, it's going to go a long way as well. I really, really appreciate every one of you, and yeah, let's keep going.
And exactly what was written down on that has happened. Of course, there were more memos. Of course, there were more decisions that were added in afterward. But isn't it kind of hard to, don't you find it to be a little bit of a coincidence that General Clark tells you the decision was made in 2001 that we were going to overthrow Gaddafi and Assad? Like, just think about that. That was a wild claim in 2001 to be made. And then we did just that. You don't find that? That doesn't make your eyebrows poke up a little bit? Like, that doesn't make you go like, oh,
I'll tell you why. So it doesn't make my eyebrows raise for the following reasons. First of all, the people that actually saw the memo, like Condoleezza Rice, would say, oh, okay, another fucking 20 memos from Dawn. Put that in the special filing cabinet for my memos from Dawn, which is the trash bin. There's no evidence that this was some grand strategy, right? And the only evidence you have is the general who never saw the memo. So then you actually look at, is there any set of facts that would persuade you that this wasn't a plan? Because we didn't, 3 of the countries out of 7, almost half the countries have not done regime change, let alone within 5 years, let alone in the specific order prescribed by the memo. And so, and not to mention, we did do regime change in countries not on the memo at all, like Liberia. So there's actually no variable from the memo that actually matches our foreign policy. And so,
exactly, this is one of the things that also Dave kind of overlooks, okay? What Dave overlooks is the fact that, okay, they said they're going to do regime change in 5 years, and that did not happen. And most of the countries mentioned there was no regime change. Only like 4 of those countries did regime change happen. 3 other countries mentioned no regime change happened in those countries. And on top of that, there were countries where regime change happened that was not even on the memo, like Liberia. So when you look at it, yes, you are saying there's this memo that talk about 7 countries, but almost half of the countries on the list, there's no regime change that went on in those countries. So how does it match the memo? And it didn't even happen in the order in which the memo is said to have listed the regime change to have happened. And it didn't happen within the time frame. So when you look at all of that, it's like, is this really, really the agenda? And also, if this was something that was being propped up by the neocons, and the neocons were the ones who were going to implement this, are you saying that the neocons were in Obama's administration because Libya, one of those countries, Libya, happened under Obama? So was it the neocons sneaking around, trying to get Obama to invade Libya? And this was just a grand scheme that was hatched many years ago. And somehow they were able to get Obama to be a part of it. You know what? If you're going to believe in ridiculous conspiracy theories, you're going to find something compelling and you're going to stick to it. And it looks like there's nothing else someone is going to present to you that will sway you anyways.
So my question to you is like, is there any possible set of facts of U.S. foreign policy from the last 4 years that would persuade you that this memo was not important?
Again, it's not the memo that you keep saying. It's that Wesley Clark says the decision's been made that
How
we're
would
going
he
to
know? How would he know? He didn't even.
So the decision, let's even, you know what? Let's grant you, Dave, that this decision has been made by, I don't know who made the decision, but this was made under the Bush administration. How many of those regime change happened under Bush's administration? Dave, how many? You forgot that there was also the Obama administration and the regime change in Libya, or the attack on Libya. You forgot about that. And somehow it just goes unnoticed that is also part of the things we have to put into the equation to believe this weird conspiracy theory, because it is a conspiracy theory that some group has made a decision, but this decision was supposed to have been made by the Bush administration, by Bush's administration. That's the administration that's supposed to make this decision. Yet part of it was implemented by the Obama administration. Make it make sense. Make it make sense, Dave.
Read the memo.
He's saying that his source at the Defense Department, and again,
So
keep in
is it
mind,
your argument that no one at the DOD would ever exaggerate or lie? Because
No,
if
that's
that's what
not-
you're saying,
No,
then
it's
who
not.
are you and what have you
Listen,
done with Dave Smith?
Okay, well, certainly, Coleman, that's a blatant straw man and not at all what I'm saying. So, no, I'm not saying no.
That is not a straw man. That is not a straw man. The point he's making is you are putting so much faith in this department that you normally do not put so much faith in.
Nobody would ever exaggerate. Sure, but I'm sure lots of people are exaggerating. The point is that the supreme leader of the NATO allies, okay, he's saying that his guy at the Defense Department said the decision's been made. My guess is that he's talking to people at the Defense Department who are in the know on this. And the point is, look, obviously, Coleman, the plan didn't go exactly according to plan. There's just no question about that.
The plan didn't go according to plan, but it was the plan. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the argument. The plan didn't go according to plan, but it was the plan. And even though it didn't go according to plan, but it was still the plan. And the plan was always the plan, even though the plan, the implementation doesn't match the plan, but it was still the plan. Because coincidence, guys, it's too much of a coincidence.
All of this is, this is late 2001 here. This is still over a year, almost a year and a half until we invade Iraq. They all believed the hype. They all thought it was going to be a cakewalk. And in fact, that's another interesting thing that John Mearsheimer covers a bit there, right? Is that essentially this was Sharon's initial beef with invading Iraq, he was like, whoa. Like he's like, hey, I want Saddam Hussein overthrown, but we got to overthrow the mullahs in Iran first.
He did not say he wanted.
He did not say, yes, he'd never, Sharon, the Prime Minister of Israel at the time, never said he wanted Saddam overthrown. He did not say that. Dave?
Saddam was where does he? What's your source on that? That Sharon said he wants.
Sorry, it's the envoy
in fact,
of Sharon.
He warned Bush not to invade Iraq. Prime Minister Ariel.
100%. You see, this is supposed to be the thing that destroys this argument. Is that the Prime Minister of Israel at the time didn't want the United States to invade Iraq, and he was open about it, and he expressed it. He made this known at the time. It was known.
Sharon warned Bush not to invade Iraq in February 2002, which is confirmed by the Israeli ambassador at the time, confirmed by Ehud Barak's former senior advisor, confirmed by Lawrence Wilkerson, the then chief of staff to Colin Powell. The Prime Minister of Israel told Bush, do not invade Iraq. It's not going to work. And anyway, Iraq is weak. Iran is the real threat.
Yes, right.
This is a massive, glaring hole in your story.
No, it's not at all.
The idea that Israel pushed us into Iraq. Go ahead.
Okay, if you let me finish the sentence, then it's not a glaring hole in my story at all. What got them on board, ultimately, the Israelis, were that they were persuaded that Iran was going to be next.
Dave, did you listen to the words that came out of your own mouth? Israel needed to be brought on board. Listen to this. Listen to this. The claim, we may have forgotten this, but the claim here is Israel dragged America to a war with Iraq. That is the claim. Now, the word drag connotes that Israel would not have otherwise got into a war with Iraq. But Israel dragged. When you drag somebody, you are making somebody do something that is against their will and against their best interest and against their better judgment. Is that they would not have done this were enough for your undue influence. Like you really, they dragging means somebody is doing it against their will, essentially. So you are saying Israel and the US and the US government did not want to invade Iraq. They did not want to do it. George Bush did not want to do this. But Israel dragged them to this war. Now let's say this is me kind of giving an uncharitable interpretation to the statement of Israel dragged the US into the war. But let's say that's not the case. Let's say the case is more like Israel influenced, in a way, contributed to this. And Israel was kind of in the planning phase. Israel was part of the people who were clamoring for the invasion of Iraq, and they wanted it. It was part of Israel's idea. Let's say that is your claim. If you have to then say why defending that claim, that Israel had to be brought on board by the very administration that went ahead to do the invasion. Like the people who wanted to do the invasion in Iraq, in the US had to bring Israel on board because they were not on board. What does that tell you? It tells you that it wasn't Israel that was responsible for this decision in any way. In fact, it was the opposite. They did it, they went along with it because the US dragged Israel. It is the opposite. The US dragged Israel into a war with Iraq. That is the best way to put it. The US dragged dragged Israel into a war with Iraq. That is the case. That is what happened. That is the truth. Because at the end of the day, it is only the US in this equation that has the ability to compel Israel to do something that they did not want to do because they have more power than Israel and they have undue influence. The Israeli government went ahead with the plan to invade Iraq because they did not want to fall out of favor with the US. That is why they did it. They had to get on board. They did not want it. You just said that they had to be brought on board, yet you want to make the claim that somehow this was done at the behest of Israel. How? How do you make that claim, Dave? How can these two things come out of your mouth and you do not somehow see the contradiction? And you do not somehow see how you can't really make that case that Israel was responsible for this.
And all of them thought Iraq was going to be a cakewalk. Now, Iraq turned out to be a catastrophe. And so, of course, the plan didn't go exactly according to plan. But again, you don't find it interesting. Like, honestly, just on a human level, you got a 4-star general saying the decision's been made to overthrow.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, again with sorry for using the last name in vain. But yeah, again with the 4-star general stuff. 4-star general, 4-star general. If you do a drinking game and you drink every time Dave Smith says 4-star general, you're going to get drunk in 5 minutes. I promise you. Someone said here that, and even if they did, the US Bush decided. That's true. But it even becomes worse when you consider the fact that they did not. They did not. That is the one that blows this case, like blows it completely. This argument, this conspiracy theory, this is what defeats it completely. Is that that Israel did not. They did not want to do this. They did not. And it is on record. And people who we are close to the matter know this for a fact that Israel did not want to do this. So Dave's case is this is destruction of Dave's case. Like, you cannot make the case based on this that Israel dragged the US to a war with Iran, or with Iraq rather. They did not. Again, guys, please remember to support the channel. Super chats and buymeacoffee.com/NIG perspective.
The governments in Libya and Syria, and then we went and did it years later. You don't find that to be, that's kind of interesting to me.
And
yeah.
Also, there's this thing that he does where he kind of ignores the condition under which every one of these invasions occurred. and how all of them happened for completely different reasons, and how at that time it was seen as necessary, and how at that time it was seen as kind of the right thing to do, and the administration thought it was the right thing to do. Kind of there was different reasons for different invasions. But for him, it's like, oh, it's all part of this grand scheme that was hatched in 2001.
No, because he never saw the guy who never saw the memo heard about a memo, and no one else who's ever seen the memo has come out.
Forget the memo. He was told the decision's been made, and we're doing this.
But how would he know? How would this guy know?
How would the guy at the Defense Department know? Because he's at the Defense Department.
But he's not the one making the decision.
Yes, but he didn't say he was the one making the decision. He said the decision's been made.
By who? By Bush?
Bush didn't imagine the top of the Defense Department. I don't know. Rumsfeld, Bush. I don't know.
Rumsfeld
it would be interesting to get a lot more of this information, but we have what we have.
Okay, instead of trusting the 4-star general that didn't even read the memo because he wasn't allowed to, let's trust the people that were actually in the room. Condoleezza Rice, talking to Bush every single day of the entire administration, says that the decision was made to go into Iraq for sure on September 7th, 2002. If you have better information than that from other people that were in the room, I'd love to hear it. But in the absence of that, I'm not going to listen to a 4-star general that never read the memo that he's talking about.
Okay, again, it's not the memo.
That wasn't even close to what happened. That wasn't even in the decision room. That didn't know what was going on. That somebody told him he had, someone said, even the person he's talking to, we don't even know who he is. He said a decision has been made. Made by whom? Who makes the decisions? Is it not Bush that makes the decision? Is it not people that make the decision has been made? Made by who? We don't know, but it has been made. Like, this kind of sketchy information is what we are going to run your entire argument on.
I don't know how many times to say this. We're kind of going
in
circles here. Oh, okay, yeah. You got a 4-star general telling you the plan has been made that we're going to go fight all of these wars.
And they didn't even have a high enough classification to read Pentagon memos.
I think 4-star general is the only argument at this point. Let's call Dave Smith Dave 4-star General Smith. Dave 4-star General Smith. You know, because at this point, that's all that 4-star general, 4-star general, 4-star general. Have you heard about the 4-star general who said the 4-star general? That's all he has. The 4-star general.
I'm supposed to listen to him over the National Security Advisor that was reading all of these memos and talking to Bush every day and talking to Rumsfeld and talking to Coleman
was also a member of the regime who was selling this war. So
Condoleezza Rice? No, she was not. She was not a neocon. She was not a Rumsfeld. She had a horrible relationship with Rumsfeld.
No, I said she was a member of the regime who was selling the war, and that's exactly what she was.
But why would that? Why would that make her less of an authority on what the plans were?
It's not a matter of making her less of an authority. It makes her less trustworthy.
But a 4-star general, can you imagine? Okay, Condoleezza Rice, who was in the building, who was part of the administration, who saw what was going on, who was part of everything, says something. We shouldn't trust Condoleezza Rice because she was part of the administration. But we should trust a 4-star general who was not even in the room.
He's not more of an authority or more trustworthy. The fact is that much of what he said came true, and that's what makes it interesting. If we had never invaded Libya, never invaded Syria, never taken any of the actions that we took in the war on terrorism.
Okay, somebody tells me that in 5 years, the US is going to invade 7 countries. Okay, Israel does not invade those 7 countries in 5 years. Israel not Israel. Sorry, somebody says there is a plan that the US is going to invade 7 countries in 5 years. The US does not invade those 7 countries in 5 years. Kind of did it in the space of, I think, 20 years. They did that in the space of 20 years. And they didn't even invade. They didn't even they said they are going to overthrow the government, rather not invade, but not even wage war on, but overthrow the government of 7 countries in 5 years. And they did not overthrow. They did that to the 7 countries. They did that to only 4 of those countries, and 3 where the government was not overthrown, right? And they even end up overthrowing. They even end up doing a regime change in a country that was not on the list. So, kind of 7 countries were 6 countries, or 5 rather, had regime change done by the US, and three had the three in the list you provided didn't have that happen, but it's still a coincidence somehow, and this shows that this document is true somehow. Even though the reality on ground does not match what is in this plan or this memo. And yes, you're still going to be, the memo. At this point, this memo should be disregarded, but you will not disregard it because you feel it makes your case, even though it doesn't. This Dave Smith is not a serious person. I want people to really understand this, and I hope this has really demonstrated this well enough, that Dave Smith is not a serious person and does not really understand what a compelling argument is and what is a credible evidence. I think he somehow falls into the same category as Candace Owens. These two people don't understand what credible evidence is and what should be held as, this is credible evidence. This is credible evidence. It is not credible evidence that a 4-star general who was not in the room, who was not privy to, whose information is secondhand. Somebody said, we don't even know who said. And who said he didn't even see the document where this plan was written on, or this memo was sent. And his entire claim of the decision being made is based on a memo which, with the way the person who is known for sending the memo usually sends memo, the memo is not even going to be significant if indeed the memo existed. And you're supposed to take that person's statement serious. What if what he had, is not accurate? What if the person who spoke to him was exaggerating or coming up or was claiming just saying something that, in recent years, we've had people come out and say someone told them, they were told by a reliable source about 150 million from Bibi Netanyahu, and there's no evidence of that. You understand? So if that is how we are going to operate, then we should take Candace Owens serious when she says that she is privy to information, personal private information, that from people who she will not name, that, Charlie Kirk essentially changed his mind 48 hours before he was assassinated. We should take that seriously because, of course, it is Candace Owens, a 4-star general in the army of Charlie Kirk. In fact, she's even more than a 4-star general. But she was not in the room when the conversation was had. We don't even know who she's talking about that told her. And if there's any decision, she did not see it or witness it happen, but we're supposed to take her as credible evidence. Dave, will you take that person as credible evidence of anything? It's the same way with this 4-star general you keep talking about, who wrote a book at a time where he was running for office because he wanted to use that to boost his campaign. He has every reason to be a liar as well. You just ignore the fact that he could be a liar because you want what he's saying to be true. It's not even a matter at this point of somebody is saying the truth. It's more of a matter of you want something to be true and you're not going to listen to anything that is contrary to that or kind of show how untrue it is. That is kind of the case here, Dave. And no amount of 4-star general is going to change that. You can repeat that from now till thy kingdom come. It doesn't make it credible, Dave. It doesn't make it credible. And just because somebody is not a part of the administration does not mean the person is not lying. And also, the thing that he said did not come true, Dave. The 7 nations in 5 years did not happen, Dave. It did not happen in the order he mentioned it, Dave. And all the countries have not been, in fact, almost half of the countries mentioned have not gone through a regime change that was the responsibility that was orchestrated by the United States. Dave, your 4-star general was wrong. Dave. And there is no reason to believe him. There is no reason to take that as serious. There is no reason. There is none. You have not demonstrated any reason other than this person was a 4-star general who was talking to some guy who you don't even know who he was talking to. I don't understand how this is carrying so much weight in Dave's mind. I just don't know how this is carrying so much weight. And again, this is the problem of conspiracy theorists. The problem of a conspiracy theorist, I wanted to say this at the end of the live stream, but let me say it now. The problem of a conspiracy theorist is not what he noticed. The problem of a conspiracy theorist is what he fails to notice. The conspiracy theorist is not somebody who is noticing things. The conspiracy theorist is someone who is not noticing. The conspiracy theorist is somebody who is obsessed with one fact and raise that fact and that or one information. A conspiracy theorist is someone who is obsessed with one piece of information and elevates it to every other information regarding a subject, whatever the subject is. He just ignores every other information or gives you reason not to put value on every other information surrounding a subject matter and sticks to one. And be like, this one information is what is credible. Everything else should be ignored. Why? He doesn't tell you. And even if he comes up with a reason, it doesn't make sense. But the reason, at the end of the day, it looks like the reason why Dave is holding on to this is because it justifies the claim he wants to make. It's somehow the only thing, the only weapon the only arrow in his quiver at this point. That's all he has. That is all he has. 4-star general. That is all he has. And I hope this has been able to demonstrate to everybody that this claim that there are foreign entities or even lobbyist groups that have this massive influence on politicians in America is not true. Politicians in America do things because they think it is right for the most part. Many of them are driven by ideology. Many of them are driven by greed. But none of them is doing something because they have their hands tied by some lobbyist group. At the end of the day, they are doing what happened at the end of the day. This is what happened. People collect money from lobbyist group that they agree with. And if you see a politician who does something in favor of a lobbyist group, it's not because the lobbyists gave them money. They were going to do it anyway, and the lobbyists just happened to give them money. In fact, that is most of the case. Now, I'm not saying that's always the case. And I think there is a case to be made for undue influence of certain lobbyist group, but it is not always the case at the end of the day. It is not always the case. And we can criticize lobbyists and how they kind of steer the government in a direction that is not in the interest of the general public. We can make that criticism. But it does not mean that at the end of the day, your politicians just... Let me ask you, if there is a policy that if let's say Congress, if members of Congress vote in favor of this policy or in favor of this bill, they are going to lose they are going to lose the next election. And a lobbyist come and give them money and say, I want you to push this. What do you think the Congress person is going to do? Do you think they are going to risk re-election, or they are going to accept the money, or they are going to ignore the offer and do everything they can to maintain their position in Congress or in Senate or even in the presidency because they want to win American votes? What do you think they will do? The only reason why any senator or any Congress person will accept money from lobbyists is because that's already what they were going to do anyways. It's kind of, you look for people who have the same interest as you, and then you pay them for it. For example, everything I'm saying is what I want to say. Now, there are people who have sent me money because they agree with what I'm saying. People who send me money because of that. I've received a couple of super chats and I'm hoping for more, okay? And people who do that because they agree with what I'm saying and they love what I'm doing on YouTube. I've received donations on my Buy Me a Coffee page, and I'm hoping for more, okay? This is me trying to plug in all those stuff, and I'm saying give me money, essentially. But people who send me money are not the people who give me what to say. They're not the ones who put words in my mouth. I have been saying this way before I even got monetized on YouTube. I've been saying this way before any person sent me money. In fact, the first time I spoke against Islam, I've said this a couple of times, the first time I spoke against Islam, I lost 5,000 subscribers. If you check my subscribers at the beginning of the year and now, you see that I've lost significant number of subscribers. And I've been losing them since last year. And it has not made me change my opinion. The money, how much money I was making when I was just talking about woke stuff, and now that I'm talking about Islam, I've lost revenue significantly. People don't know this, but that's the truth. I have. So at the end of the day, to make this claim that, oh, it's not just people who have similar interests paying somebody who they believe is pursuing their interests, and that's how lobbyist group work or how lobbying work, to say, no, somebody was not going to do this until they receive money from Israel. It's kind of not how it works. I don't even know how I got here, but anyways.
Then yeah, it would be much less relevant that a general said he saw that the decision had been made in 2001.
Okay. Well, everyone else in the room does not say the decision had been made. And he was not in these rooms making these decisions with the Secretary of Defense and the National Security Advisor and George Bush.
So it's just a complete coincidence that we went and overthrew those regimes that he heard that we were going to.
We have contingency plans for all kinds of things.
Again, that's not what this is what Douglas Murray tried to do too. It's not a contingency plan.
When you're the Pentagon writing 60 memos a day, I guarantee you will troll those memos and find information and plans for every possible contingency in the world. The burden is still on you.
This is not what we're talking about
out one out of the 60,000 and say that this was important. But can we get to Sharon?
But that's just not what you're doing.
We skipped over Sharon.
It's just not what I'm doing. I'm not saying there was a memo once that said something. I'm saying that a 4-star general said the decision had been made, that he had sources in the Defense Department. His sources in the Defense Department.
Who was basing it on what? The memo.
Okay, fine, but even if it was, it's not. But the issue isn't that there's a memo. The issue is whether a decision has been made here. There might be lots of memos that go out every day, but a memo that says we're going to fight, we're going to topple 7 countries in the next 5 years, a pretty big memo. That's not just one of the regular memos. That's the point.
Evidence it was a big memo? Your only evidence is the guy who never read it. You realize how ridiculous this is. You couldn't, if you were a historian writing a book, you'd have to cut this out of the book because you're relying on the hearsay of someone that never even read the document, much less you or I have never read the document. And we know that they were writing 60 documents a day that Condoleezza Rice was putting in the trash. It's a ridiculously low bar of evidence you'd have to consider this memo and everything implied by it.
And that's what they do. That's what conspiracy theorists do. When they see something that supports their claim, they have this low bar for evidence for anything that supports their claim, and then this high bar of evidence for everything that does not support their claim. It's kind of Condoleezza Rice. Don't listen to her. 4-star general over here who is spilling hearsay evidence. Listen to that guy. Essentially, that's kind of how this whole thing works. It's like we are going to be skeptical. Our skepticism for something that is coming from the government and people who are privy to information to know what actually happened, we are going to be heavily critical of it and heavily skeptical about it. But when it comes to something that is said by somebody who had something, who a bird flew by and spoke something in his ear, that person who even does not even understand who the conversation about how he even got privy to such information is kind of sketchy and not really, we don't even understand how he even got to know about it. It's kind of, how did this happen and who said, we don't know. But that person, because he's a 4-star general, guys, we should pay attention to him. So ridiculous.
Important.
I mean, I don't know how else to say this, dude. This just feels so nutty to me. I guess we'll just leave this up to people.
Okay. Can we talk about Sharon, though?
1 second. I'm just saying, I guess we'll leave it up to the audience to decide. I think having the head of the NATO allied forces and a 4-star general.
Dave, the audience is now with you. Like, I don't know if anyway, maybe he didn't see this one coming, but the audience was definitely not with Dave on this one. They were not. Like, you need to see the comments. The comments were brutal on Dave. Like, the comments were brutal. This was one of those few moments on YouTube where the comment section really gave me something to be happy about. Like, the comments were brutal about how Dave performed in this debate. So we've left it for the audience, and the audience have decided, and they felt you did a terrible job defending your position.
Saying he was informed that the decision has been made to fight all of these wars, and then we went on and fought a whole bunch of them. I think that's a pretty relevant detail. And I'm not a historian writing a book. I'm a guy talking about these issues to the American people.
Oh, please don't give us that BS. You see, this is the problem. This is why you don't pay attention to I'm just a guy people. They don't know how. It's like you don't even understand how evidence works. You don't really understand what credible evidence is. And when somebody points out that, look, even a historian will not take this serious. Even an intellectual, somebody who understands how evidence works will not take this serious. They're like, well, I'm not that. And I'm like, okay, then please keep quiet then. Just, if you're not that and you will not even apply that standard, which is a reasonable standard to apply when you're considering something as evidence, then don't. What is this? This is what it's like. Oh, I am just the guy who speaks to idle moms at home and try to convince them about every ridiculous claim out there, and this is my evidence for it. 4-star general.
So I don't know. You can decide whether you find that to be a pretty interesting story or not.
Okay, let's go on to Sharon, because this is the core of the issue. You said earlier, I mentioned, and you agree that Sharon warned Bush in February 22 not to go into Iraq and that Iran was the big threat. But then you said the Israelis got on board when they were guaranteed that Iran would be after Iraq.
Yes.
Is that right? So then
Well,
how does that amount
really
to,
is my
my
source on this.
Okay. How does but I'm not following your logic, because how does that all add up to the Israelis pushed us into Iraq? Because
Exactly the point that I made earlier. If it was the case that Israel had to be brought on board, then how did Israel push you to do something that you had to bring them on board to do? How?
there's still that he warned us. That sounds more like that sounds more like we pulled them.
Exactly, Dave. Exactly, Dave. It sounds more like you guys, the U.S., are the ones pulling Israel into this war, not the other way around.
Into Iraq. That's your argument.
Well, no, I mean, look, it's not, again, my argument isn't either of those things exactly.
What? You said that earlier. Dave, you said that earlier. Sorry, it's about to rain over here. But Dave, you said that earlier. That was what you said earlier. Those were your words exactly, Dave.
You're saying we had to persuade them by putting out Iran as a chip, and we had to loop them into it. That's exactly what you just said.
Listen, yeah, but they're not monoliths here, right? So essentially, you have different factions within all of these groups, right? So you have the neoconservatives, who were always more closely aligned with the Likud guys and Benjamin Netanyahu. Sharon, I think, was a Likud at one point and then split with the party and formed his own thing. Like he had his own weird falling outs with Benjamin Netanyahu over the years.
He was Likud at the time of the Iraq War decision. He was the leader of the Likud party.
He was still.
Just another fact that does not align with Dave's conspiracy theory. That the person who he wants to make it look like, oh, he wasn't really Likud. No, he was the leader of the party at the time. Dave?
Likud at that point, sure,
yes.
but there's still different factions. It's not Benjamin Netanyahu. It was Sharon, who Benjamin Netanyahu a few years later quit the government over.
That is inconsequential. Get straight to the point, Dave.
For some of Sharon's policies, I believe. I think it was. Sorry, I'm just getting confused in my own head here. I think it was the withdrawal in 2005 is when Netanyahu quit the government. But so you had the neoconservatives and Benjamin Netanyahu, who that wing, they were pushing for Iraq first. The Sharon's envoy, at least according to at least the first envoy that he sent over, right? He goes, whoa, no, we should go after Iran first. And that was like their issue. And they were essentially that group won, and they persuaded the other group that they would do Iran next, which also lines up with, General Wesley Clark's statement about how Iran would be the final regime that was overthrown.
Okay, so your argument
also
then...
didn't come.
What? So what exactly? So a part of the party. Dave, the mental gymnastics is too much, Dave. The mental gymnastics. I hope you understand that the mental gymnastics is just too much, Dave. Look. So you are saying that essentially there is a divide in the Likud party. One part of the Likud party wanted Iraq to be invaded, and the other part wanted it to be Iran. And so the part that wanted it to be Iraq won over the part that wanted it to be Iran. And so who were the ones dragging America to a war with Iraq? Was it the part of the Likud that was not in line with the prime minister at the time? It was the part of Likud that was in line with Benjamin Netanyahu. That was the part that was colluding with the neocons to invade Iraq. But somehow, they had to win over the... So that is... Do you see how ridiculous this is? Do you see how Candace Owens' level of ridiculous this is? How this is just weird at this point. This is like, what are you even saying? This is weird.
True, by the way.
So let me just nail down what you're arguing. You're arguing that there's a split in the Likud party between the pro-Iraq and the anti-Iraq invasion. And within the Likud party, the pro-Iraq invasion element persuaded the anti-Iraq evasion Sharon element. Is that that's your argument?
No, I mean, the argument is really that the neoconservatives drove the war and that they agreed with Benjamin Netanyahu, who also, as you know, came over that year and testified that we should go overthrow
That was
Saddam
after the
Hussein.
decision had already been made. That was on September 12th. According to Condoleezza Rice, they had a big meeting on September 7th, and they agreed on the war in Iraq. The fact that Netanyahu testified to Congress 5 days later, after the decision has been made. I mean, if you're saying Joe is the reason I moved to New York, but I didn't talk to Joe until after I made the decision, then this is totally irrelevant. What matters is what was happening during the time that the U.S. security...
Wait, before the point that Coleman is trying to make, so is Dave essentially say, okay, the neocons were the one who pushed for a war with Iraq. Okay, so not Israel then. Okay, the neocons. And the neocons were in alliance with not a portion of the Likud party, but Benjamin Netanyahu, essentially. So one man, Benjamin Netanyahu, was the one in Israel who pushed America to a war with Iraq. One man, Bibi, one man, was the one person. Wow, what a powerful guy. What a powerful man. I thought it was the lobbyist. I thought it was the Israel money or the Jewish money. I thought it was all of that. I thought it was the Likud party. I thought it was all of that, but it was one man, Bibi Netanyahu, and neocons. It was just one man who was not even in power at the time, who was not even prime minister at the time. One man. That was that is it, Dave. That is it. That is your argument, Dave. That it was this guy. This guy was the one who wanted it. And this guy was the one who dragged America into a war with Iraq. One man from Israel. One man. Powerful stuff, guys. Powerful, 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 powerful stuff.
Establishment was debating Iraq, which was winter of 22 to summer of 22. And during this time, we have multiple sources, including Lawrence Wilkerson, who is no fan of the neocons. He's acerbic about the neocons and acerbic about the Israel lobby, which he says is too powerful. This is Colin Powell's chief of staff. He hates the Israel lobby. Nevertheless, he said in, well, let me quote you from him, actually. He said in the New Republic, he goes, hold on, let me find it. He confirms the basic picture. Hold on, let me find it really fast. Okay, so he says, Lawrence Wilkerson, who hates the Israel lobby, says, the Israelis were telling us Iraq is not the enemy. Iran is the enemy. The Israelis tried their best to persuade us that we were focused on the wrong enemy. But once they understood that we were going to war, come hell or high water, they weren't going to get on the wrong side of the President of the United States. That's Lawrence Wilkerson, who hates the Israel lobby, chief of staff to the Secretary of State during these years in the New Republic. So everyone that is in the room says that basically what the Israelis did, and Sharon is the leader of the party and leader of the country, tells Bush, this Iraq idea is stupid, it's not going to work, democracy doesn't work in the Middle East anyway, Iran is the threat, you should be focused on them. Bush tells them to F off, we're going into Iraq, and then Sharon says, okay, well, we didn't convince them, we might as well support our biggest allies because we never want to be on the wrong side of America. That's actually what happened. And then once a decision is made, after that point, Netanyahu testifies to Congress saying, oh, we love the war in Iraq, testifies as a citizen, not as a leader of the party. And everyone in the room corroborates this story.
Okay. I just...
And guys, that is exactly what happened. That is how it always happened. I want Americans to dispel of this myth. It is a myth that has no basis in reality. That foreign nations, especially nations that are small, like Israel, a nation that is the size of New Jersey, or I don't know how you pronounce that nation. A very small nation, anyways. A very small nation like Israel is somehow controlling your government, or that Bibi Netanyahu is somehow controlling your government. It is not true. Dispel of that myth. It is not true. There is no way. This is how, in fact, without even getting access to any of the information, I could tell that this is exactly how it happened. That it is the case of the US dragging Israel to a war with Iraq. It is the case of Israel playing along with the US. That is what it is. That is how it happens when this is your strongest ally. This is one of the persons. This is when the nation you owe your existence, or the nation you hold that gives you the greatest support. When that nation tells you jump, you jump. When they say fly, you fly. It is not, you're not the one who give orders. You're not the one. This is what it has always been about. Israel is the smaller guy in the equation. The US is the big man. The US is the big dog. The US is the one calling the shot. And if they go along with Israel's plan, it's just to throw them a bone or to do them a favor, which is a favor that Israel will have to repay forever. That's kind of how it works. Israel is not your charity case. It has never been. You don't have any charity case in the world. Every money you give to every world leader is a bribe. Essentially, you're bribing them because tomorrow you want them on your con. That is how it works. That is how foreign policy works. A small nation like Israel does not get to dictate how America is going to behave or what Americans' foreign policy is going to be, and it will not be opposed if America is not in support of it. America is the one calling the shot in this relationship. America is the one calling the shot. And I just find it preposterous that people will believe that somehow it is Israel calling the shot. There is no reason to ever believe this. And even when there is clear evidence of this, even when it is coming from people like Coleman just quoted, someone who is not in favor of the Israel lobby, and someone who is not in favor of the neocons, and somebody who is not a fan of the Likud, is going ahead to say, look, these people didn't want to invade Iraq rather. They wanted Iran. But when they saw that they were not going to get what they wanted, they were like, you know what? This is what the US wants, and we're going to go along with it because we don't want to, you don't want to offend them. That is how it works. And everything else, every other nonsense that you hear is Candace Owens level conspiracy theory that should not be taken seriously at all. At all. And I find it really unfortunate that people really take them seriously. That is a very unfortunate situation.
I highly recommend people read Mearsheimer's book, The Israel Lobby.
Dude, like I said earlier, this is not a good time to plug the book. You read the book and you could not defend your position. I doubt that any other person will read the book and be able to defend their position. And if you cannot defend your position without quoting a book, maybe you shouldn't go around saying it. This is the same thing that Douglas Murray said to you. If at the end of the day, your big fact that you're going to point to us is to plug a book, if that is all it is, if all your argument rests on plugging books, then let the writer of the book be the one doing the talking, not you. You're not a good representative of this position if all you're going to do is plug books. Imagine I'm a lawyer in court and I'm trying to defend my client and I'm like, Your Honor, I think you should read this book. You read this book and your mind is going to be changed. You don't even quote anything from the book. You don't cite anything from the book. You don't quote any of the argument posited in the book. Your entire shtick is just, Your Honor, please read the book and your life will be changed. Your Honor.
World-renowned scholar wrote a book about the most controversial topic in the world. And so he just went out of his way to back up everything he says in the book. But the whole point is that,
But you who read the book cannot back up everything you've claimed. Dude, you should be ashamed of yourself instead of plugging books.
Initially, there were people in Sharon's camp who didn't want to they all wanted to overthrow Saddam Hussein. Let's get real. They were worried about doing it first before
Congress
you
did.
go.
We signed the Iraq Liberation Act in '98,
Right.
so it was bipartisan
Lots of
policy
people
to
did.
push for regime change.
So that
in one way
kind
or
of helps
another.
my point. So let me just finish the point I'm making. Right, exactly. So that totally backs up what I was just saying.
Not that Israel was behind it.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, continue your point. I'm sorry.
All right, man.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. Israel was totally against the war in Iraq. The whole year, AIPAC and the neocons and the Israel government.
Please don't resort into sarcasm. Come on, Dave. This sarcasm is going to help you if you are doing a stand-up routine. Okay, this sarcasm is not going to help you. That's not. The last time I checked, sarcasm is not an argument, Dave. You see, this is why we say, and people are like, I know you've always talked about how people always point out that you're a comedian, and this is why. when you cannot defend your position, you resort to jokes, to sarcasm.
We're not pushing for the war in Iraq. I mean, anyway, I'd highly recommend people go read the book. It's all backed up in there. There's tons of evidence on it. AIPAC was bragging, by the way, about how their influence over the thing.
They bought the Iraq war for dentist money?
Yeah.
Dave, is that how AIPAC was able to get Congress to be in favor of a war in Iraq with dentist money, Dave? In fact, dentist money was higher. Dentist money was 32 million. AIPAC's money was 30 million. And the 30 million was not even under Bush's administration. Under Bush's administration, it was 17 million. 17 million, Dave. 17 million is why Congress decided to invade Iraq, Dave.
No, I didn't say that, actually. It's just a lot of straw manning, man.
Yeah.
How about just like if I...
Dave, why are you angry, Dave? Dave, why are you angry? Why are you upset, Dave?
Don't say it. Don't just like make that my argument for me. Anyway, the fact that the longest serving...
Oh my God. I think he's about to go back to the four-star general. I think he's about to go back to talking about the four-star general.
Prime minister in Israeli history comes to America in 2002.
But he wasn't the prime minister in 2002, Dave. He wasn't the prime minister in 2002. And the fact that he's the long-standing doesn't prove anything. He wasn't the prime minister in 2002. That's that. Dave
advocates to Congress, whether or not the decision had been made at the executive branch.
So wait, you're saying whether or not the decision had been made before... Whether or not the executive branch of the government have made the decision or they've not made the decision, it is inconsequential to the fact that Bibi went to Congress to testify that Iraq has WNDs and the US should essentially invade Iraq. That it doesn't matter that the decision has already been made. Is that what you are saying, Dave? Of course it is consequential. If the decision has already been made, it doesn't matter what Bibi says or what it doesn't say. And what Bibi says does not show that Bibi was the one pulling the strings. If the decision has already been made, Dave,
to Congress that we are going to that you ought to overthrow the regime in Iraq, also overthrow the mullahs in Iran, also overthrow Gaddafi in Libya. That is relevant, man. And the fact is,
at the time he had been prime minister for 3 years. He wasn't the longest serving anything of anything. He was testifying as a private citizen.
Did I say that he was?
No,
well, he's not saying you said that. He's just saying it's important to put that in context, that when he said that the highest he has ever been prime minister was for 3 years. That is important. He's not saying you said that. It's just context that needs to be added, Dave. He's not saying you said that. He's saying put this in context that this person was not the longest serving prime minister at the time. And even at that time, he wasn't even the prime minister.
But it's relevant to the impact he would have had at the time.
No, but it's also relevant that he went on to be the...
And he testified after the Iraq war decision had already been final.
Can you imagine Dave Smith's argument here? Is that whatever you go on to do in the future makes, you can somehow borrow influence from who you become in the future. Like Benjamin Netanyahu has not been the longest standing prime minister at the time. But the fact that he went on to become the longest standing prime minister at the time kind of make it that he was actually significant. At the time, he wasn't the longest standing prime minister. So kind of the significance of Benjamin Netanyahu was borrowed from his future. he borrowed his significance from the future and became relevant in 2002. He borrowed relevance is what Dave is basing everything from at this point.
By the White House. What does it matter what he said after the decision was made, Dave?
Because he's talking to Congress and trying to persuade them to support it. I don't...
Amongst the sea of other people who did the same, he was... Do you think that Congress backed the war in Iraq on the testimony of Bibi Netanyahu? Did they say, "Oh, look at Bibi. He looks like somebody who will end up becoming the longest standing prime minister in the let me get this right. So the Congress look at Bibi Netanyahu like, this guy has potential. He's likely going to become the longest standing prime minister. So let's take his words serious. And for that reason, let's go and spend trillions in Iraq. Really, Dave?
No, man. I mean, like it does seem like you're bending over backward to cover for a foreign country. It's just a little bit strange.
No. This is one of the dumbest accusations to throw out there, especially when you're losing an argument. Someone is pointing out that your case is not, and you're like, oh, why are you defending Israel so much? Why are you bending over backwards to defend Israel? And I can say the same thing about you, Dave. Why are you bending over backwards, doing extreme level, Olympics level gymnastics to accuse Israel? Why are you going to that great length? Doing this kind of weird trick, mental trick to somehow put all the blame of your government's decision or a huge chunk of it, or even a substantial chunk of it on Israel. Why? What did the nation do to you? Why?
The longest serving prime minister in Israel's history.
Or is your argument therefore that because it's a foreign nation, it's okay to just bash them unfairly? And anybody who defends them, is kind of weird that they will defend them. I can also say it's kind of weird that you attack a nation that is small, that you, at the end of the day, is really, really small. Like, why are you kicking on the little guy, Dave? Why will you bend over backwards just to kick on the little guy, Dave? Why?
Comes over here and advocates that we fight multiple wars on his behalf. And that's nothing to you because the decision to fight one of them had already been made. I don't know what to say. The neoconservatives.
He's not say, he didn't go there to say that the war should be fought on his behalf. Oh, God. Bibi did not go to Congress and say, fight on my behalf. He just went there to testify, oh, yes, they have WMDs. That's all he did in Congress. And yeah, you should go ahead and fight them. That's all he said. He didn't say do it for Israel.
Conservatives drove us into the war in Iraq. They were all publicly admitting this at the time. This wasn't a secret.
Yes, but
There's no conspiracy
not for
involved.
Israel's sake. But not for Israel's sake. We agree on the
It had
first half of that sentence.
nothing to do with Israel. They all of the neocons just happened to write about how much they love Israel all the time.
They didn't do it for Israel, Dave. Even though they believed that Israel was going to benefit from it, they did not do it for Israel. Kind of, and this argument that, they somehow happen to love Israel. I somehow happen to love. If I have a dog, I don't. But if I have a dog, I believe that I will love my dog. It doesn't mean that everything I do for my dog. You cannot say, he robbed the bank and he did it because of his dog. Why? Because he always wrote on Facebook about his love for dogs. So he did it because of his dogs. Ridiculous.
All right.
Okay, so what's your theory of Tony Blair? Because
all right, so this is where there's another part of this interview that I was hoping I would have time to go into, but I think I've gone into a huge chunk of what I have enough strength to go into. So let's just end it there. Let's just end it there. Anyways, so yeah, thank you everyone for joining me on the live stream. I really appreciate it, and yeah, it's an interesting live stream, I guess. I guess it's not one of those where I get to like become so angry. It's just one of those live streams where I just chill and just be like, you know what, I don't agree with what this guy is saying. And I like the fact that I did it with this. I'm not using my regular software to do this. I think that's the huge win for me right now, is that I'm not using my regular software to do this. And yeah, I'm using something new. And I'm also happy that I wasn't shouting too much on this one. I think, you might not come out, you might not perceive it that way, but that's how I remember it. According to my perception, my perspective. Anyway. So yeah, that is that about that. And I want to end. How do I end this live stream? Okay, I want to end that. I want to end the live stream like this. I want to say this. It's something that I read from the Screw Tapes, Screw Tapes letter or Screw Tapes letters. It was written by C.S. Lewis, and I think it's something that I kind of said earlier. I'm not going to quote it exactly because I don't have the quote in front of me, but I remember him saying it, or it being said in the. It was one of the things that Screw Tape said to his demon companion. He said that the human beings often accuse us for putting things into the mind of people, but that's not usually what we do. That's this Screw Tape talking now. And he said, we don't actually put things into people's mind. We kind of put things out of people's mind. Now he's saying that's how demons operate, essentially. That they don't, their job is not usually, they're not usually in the job of putting things into people's mind. They're in the job of putting things out of people's mind. And it's funny that conspiracy theories kind of adopt the same mentality. It's not always about what they are mentioning. It's about what they are not mentioning. That's one thing I've realized about them. It's always about what they are not mentioning. They are not mentioning, like for Dave Smith, there's just so many things he's not mentioning, just so many things he's overlooking, just so many things he's downgrading, just so many things he's ignoring. And why he's ignoring that is obviously because they don't fit into the narrative that he's running with. And when you see somebody like that, you know this is not somebody who is being honest. That's just the truth. People like Dave Smith are not honest people. Before I continue my rant, I want to appreciate Olajide once again, my Yoruba friend that stays in the United States. Thank you. Also, you said, thank you, Frank. I don't know how you remain sane listening to these people for hours. Well, I do it for you guys. I do it for you guys. I do it for you. I do it for you. And I do it because sometimes I feel it is necessary to point these things out. And yeah, they need to be pointed out. So that's why I do it. So yeah, it is what's pointing out. That's why I pointed out. And I'm grateful for everyone who, listened to me point it out. But anyway, back to the point I was trying to make. So yeah, it's always what they are ignoring. So whenever you look at someone who is trying to push, that's one thing about propagandists. Always watch out for this. When you talk about Tucker Carlson, when you talk about Candace Owens, when you talk about Dave Smith, and also people who go ahead to write books like that, always watch out for what they are not saying. Always watch out for the things that they are not mentioning. Always ask yourself, is there a context to this? Is there more to the story? Is there more to this quote that they are mentioning? Is there context that they are excluding? And when you go deep and you look into it, you realize that yes, there's context that they are ignoring. There are context that they will, even when they admit that context exists, they'll say it is insignificant. But don't let them be the ones to tell you that it is insignificant. You should be the one to decide if it is significant or not. Okay? And it shows that somebody is not really knowledgeable or willing to really be serious about the conversation if they are willing to cut out things that are relevant and just overemphasize things that they feel is relevant to their case, but will not emphasize or even mention things that are not relevant, that are kind of undermining their case. So, and I think that's one thing that Dave Smith and the likes have become notorious for. But because they have this kind of, will I say, charisma to it, and how they talk about it is kind of charismatic, people kind of ignore the fact that these people don't know what they are saying. These people are lying, and these people are lying by omission. And it's really big lies by omission that they are making. People kind of ignore all of that. And you should not be one of those people. Don't be wooed by their beautiful oratory and how they are able to articulate their position with extreme confidence. Don't be deceived by that or carried away by that. Always listen to the substance of the argument that they are making and question what is being left out. And question if you are being told the whole story. One thing that the conspiracy theories have succeeded in doing for years is to tell us to question everything that the government is saying. But right now, it is becoming clear that you also have to question everything that they are also saying. Because it turns out that they are much bigger liars. Sorry, something is in my eyes. It turns out that they are much bigger liars. These conspiracy theories are much bigger liars than the government. It turns out that people who we are pointing out the lies from the government, we are doing so because they wanted to tell you a lie of their own. That's kind of the case here. And the lie of their own lie is kind of more preposterous and ridiculous at the end of the day. So, yeah. That's kind of what I see, going on here. I want to thank James for the super sticker. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. That is exceptional. I am blown away by that. You see, everyone don't be like Dave Smith, but be like James, okay? Don't be like Dave, be like James, okay? And God will bless you. All right. As it is my custom, I usually end this way. So I will do what you guys already know, that this is how Frank ends his live stream. And I want to end it by saying, look, beyond all of these things that are going on, one thing that will help you, or help every one of us, when you look at the amount of lies that are being spread online and offline and everywhere, is the truth. And the greatest truth of all is the truth of God's love. And that was exemplified in the sacrifice that Jesus made on the cross for your justification, for your salvation, to really save you. You know, the scripture, people who emphasize the need for the truth always say the truth is important. But one statement that really emphasizes that is found in the scriptures that say, you shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free. And the truth, the real saving truth, the real liberating truth, is the truth of God's love. It's the truth that Christ came, he died, was buried, and rose on the third day. And he did all of that to renew you back to God, to put you on a good relationship with God. That is more important than everything we've ever spoken about. And I know it's coming last, kind of me saving the best for last. But yeah, I think you should know that. And I think that should transform your life. And yeah, God loves you. He died for you, rose for you. And because he rose, you too can rise. If you put your faith in him, and if you trust in him, and in his power, saving power, you too would rise. You will rise above all the lies. You will rise above all the conspiracy theories. You will rise above all the problems that come in life. You'll be able to look at people like Dave Smith talk. And yes, sometimes they might get under your skin, but one thing that will keep you steady is God. The truth is, even for me personally, that's the only thing that keeps me steady. That's the only thing that keeps me steady. It's God. It's God. All right, guys. Thank you. And I don't have the Candace Owens. Okay, I think there's a way to arrange that. That's arranged for the Candace Owens clip to be played at the end. So let me bring that. All right, so I have the clip here. And I'm going to pull it out. All right, guys, thank you all. I really appreciate it. And we'll have another live stream tomorrow, definitely, hopefully. And I hope to see all of you. And until then, peace.
It's a gut thing, okay? I don't know, but I know. Okay? I don't know, but I know. What are we to discern from all of this? I'll tell you my take on this. It's a gut thing, okay? I don't know, but I know. Okay? I don't know, but I know. It's a gut thing. I don't know, but I know. It's a gut thing. I don't know, but I know. It's a gut thing, okay? Make it make sense. It's very easy to debunk me, okay? Easy. Super internet, debunk me, okay? Easy. Super internet, debunk me, okay? Very easy. We've got other people that are doing different things, and they do not want us to prod the narrative. So I'm going to assume doesn't make sense to prod the narrative. We've got other people. Doesn't make sense to prod the narrative. We've got other people. Doesn't make sense to prod the narrative. We've got other people that are doing different things. I don't know, but I know. Prod the narrative. I don't know, but I know. It's a gut thing. It's over. It's done. Wrap it up.